Part 49. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 482. The unique power of the Dragon Clan was perfectly displayed at this time. As soon as the ice blade was swung out, the people in the Duke's palace had not thought that Lily might also be a magician, although it seemed that she could use the ice blade technique without chanting a spell. Everyone was shocked, but they didn't take Lily to heart at first, until the ice blade flew towards the magicians, easily penetrating the shield, and several soldiers holding the shield even screamed. When the ice blade passed through the body without making any sound, the sound of several magicians chanting spells suddenly stopped, and their bodies quickly began to freeze with frost. The soldiers standing in the front row holding shields quickly turned into ice sculptures and faced the ground. Fell down. The sound of bang bang came, and several dead bodies fell to the ground. As the ice cubes fell to the ground and shattered, the magician inside was naturally torn into pieces, without even a trace of flesh and blood. Seeing this, several magicians who seemed to be extremely mysterious in the eyes of many soldiers died completely. Some people who had been waiting to see Lily's joke were subconsciously startled. Several people from the mercenary team who had just come along looked at each other in horror, covering their lips and speechless. Lily made several more ice blades in her hands. When she threw them out this time, the people in the Duke's palace did not dare to carry them as hard as before. Instead, the crowd dispersed. The ice blades fell on the house, and a large area of the wall was covered with frost. This level of magic is no longer something that ordinary magicians can produce. A pale-faced magician shouted loudly, "Go and inform the second lady, the one who is coming is a great magician." As soon as the magician finished speaking, ice quickly began to form on his body. When they heard the reputation of the great mage, many soldiers dared to stay at this moment. They all wished they could grow 8 legs and run faster. The soldiers who had just been surrounding the door dispersed at this time. Most of the time, the name of the great mage was still very loud at this time. The Imperial Academy had quickly sent people over, and suddenly a loud roar of dragons rang out in the Duke's mansion. The sound was like it was as if the sky was shining through the night sky, and the person who had been running around in a panic just now finally looked relieved. He said happily, "Miss Lin Jiao is in the mansion, and now the dragon has come out." A huge fiery red dragon soared into the sky, looking very powerful. Just like the previous statue outside the Duke's palace, a figure wearing red leather armor, a short skirt and knee-high boots stepped on the red dragon. On the head of the giant dragon. At this time, Lin Xiao, who was dressed in fluttering clothes, was already an adult. After the dragon flew out of the Duke's palace, she looked up to the sky and screamed. The sound sounded unusually loud to ordinary people, but to Lily's ears, it felt a little lacking in stamina. The giant fire dragon's scales looked dazzling at this moment. But the flames that were supposed to be wrapped around the armor disappeared completely at this time. This momentum can scare ordinary people. But looking in Lily's eyes, she knew that this dragon was almost exhausted. As expected, it was Al, Long Bei's childhood best friend. Lily felt a sad feeling in her heart. When Al went out to look for her, Lily had originally doubted whether this giant fire dragon had been killed by Lin. He was deceived, but then he thought about it and it was a little impossible. After all, although the dragon people could not compete with the cunning humans in terms of trickery because they had been hiding from the world for many years, Al was very powerful. Besides, it was probably this year that the demon lord escaped and followed Lin Xiao, so she never thought about it in other directions. It wasn't until after entering the Kaizen Empire that Lily heard someone say that Lin Xiao had become a dragon knight and that a dragon beside her recognized her as its master. Only then did Lily realize that Al, who had disappeared for a year, might have fallen into Lin Xiao's hands. When he heard Lily's voice, the body of the giant red dragon that was tumbling in the air froze. Suddenly, a ball of flames was sprayed from its mouth towards the sky. The flames looked dim and quickly extinguished. Lin Xiao, who was standing on the dragon head, shouted, "Al." When she spoke, she even reached out and pulled the reins hanging on the corner of Al's head. Al wailed in his mouth and quickly landed. When the dragon landed, it brought up a huge strong wind, and the people around him were blown around. Lily was still standing there. The heavy dragon made a muffled sound after landing, and the ground even shook. The pretty figure standing above Al's head suddenly jumped down, and she seemed to be holding something in her arms. But most of it was blocked by the fiery red cloak, and his figure could not be seen clearly. The giant red dragon lying on the ground blinked. When he saw Lily, his eyes showed a look of surprise but exhaustion. He chirped and raised his head with some difficulty. Lily thought of the name of Long Bahi in his memory. Al's friend, who was so high-spirited at first, can no longer even transform into a human being. Lily's eyes were a little astringent, and she glared coldly at Lin Jiao, who was standing not far away. She could see that Al's appearance was no different from that of Al, who had been completely sucked dry by Lin Jiao. Lily would now has no intention of attacking Lin Jiao. It seems that Al has signed a master-servant contract with Lin Jiao. If she wants to forcefully attack Lin Jiao, Al will inevitably do it under the influence of the master-servant contract. She attacked. Although she didn't know how the useless Lin Jiao tricked the fire dragon Al into signing a contract with her, now Lily walked towards Al, and before her hand touched Al's face, Lin Jiao's delicate voice rang out. "Sir, I know you have never seen a giant dragon, but this is a dangerous creature. Al only has a date with me. Apart from it not attacking me, anyone who touches it will be attacked." Lin Jiao at this moment, the voice was filled with arrogance and smile, as if he was showing off. After hearing this, the people around him glanced at the behemoth with greedy eyes, and many people subconsciously took a step back. At this time, the giant dragon's body had gathered around the entire imperial capital square. Its huge dragon head was like a hill, and the breath coming out of its nostrils could have blown away an ordinary swordsman. However, Lily stood firmly in front of him, Liya ignoring Lin Jiao's words. "Sir, I have already warned you. Please stay away from my dragon, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." Lin Jiao's face darkened. Her attitude of warning repeatedly without taking direct action won praise from a group of people. Many people even cried excitedly because they saw the legendary dragon female knight in the imperial capital with their own eyes. Lily sneered, "Get away." After Lin Jiao entered this different world and invented all kinds of things, everyone smiled when they mentioned her and spoke softly to her, especially after she signed a contract with the Fire Tribe Dragon. After that, even His Majesty the Emperor looked at her with some respect when he saw her. Even the mentor of his eldest sister Lin Qian, who was once arrogant in front of him, the famous great mage in the empire, when they faced her, they all praised her as a talent that the empire could build, and her future achievements would be limitless. In the eyes of men, Lin Jiao is the pride of the entire Kaizen Empire. Although she is not as beautiful as her sister Lin Qian, she possesses the wisdom that Lin Qian cannot possess. She has been practicing yoga for many years, so she has a perfect figure that women are jealous of. Although she looks ordinary, her figure is better than many women in the world. What's more, under her weak appearance, she is so strong that she is almost as scary as a dragon. Because of her strength, men all looked up to her, and even the crown prince, whom Lin Qian could not get in the past, followed her. Lin Jiao originally thought that she did not like these ordinary men at all, but there was actually one whom she originally thought was ordinary. When the man stood in front of her and did not crawl at her feet like other men because of his charm, Lin Jiao felt a little unhappy again. "I have repeatedly reminded you, sir, not to get close to my dragon, but at this time, you don't seem to be willing to listen. As a lady, I am willing to give you 3 moves." Lin Jiao smiled and said something that she thought suited her identity and demeanor. When the words came, the captain of the guard, who had witnessed Lily's terrifying power of using magic without even saying a spell, hurriedly shouted, "Miss Lin Jiao, please step back." This person is very dangerous. I suspect he is a great magician. Lin Xiao, who originally thought she had a chance to win, was shocked when she heard this. Her current level of magic cultivation has only reached the standard of a great magician. The next level after the great magician is a magician, and the difficulty of promotion to a great mage is really unimaginable. A great mage like Lin Xiao is already a phoenix in the Kaizen Empire, and all this is because she directly inherited half of the talent and strength of the fire dragon. Achieved, otherwise even if she inherited Al's talent, it would be difficult for her to become a great magician in just over a year. The way Lin Xiao looked at Lily at this time had instinctively changed. At first, she looked down on Lily, a superficial guy. After all, now that she is in the imperial capital, there is no shortage of pursuits from nobles. She used to look down on her. Hers are now piled in front of her with hearts in her hands. She has seen many nobles, and they no longer seem rare. After tasting the taste of strength, for Lin Xiao, a man's appearance is secondary, and the most important thing is a man's strength and inner strength. No matter how handsome and extraordinary Long Bei's body is, if he is vulnerable or even mentally stupid, she will still look down upon him. But if a man's beauty, wisdom, and even strength can match her competing with him, naturally such a man is enough to make Lin Xiao look at him differently. Al, are you okay? Lily ignored these people and asked softly. Many people thought that Lily had gone crazy and started talking to a dragon. The dragon was the most popular in the entire Fenja continent. There are many legends. In some legends, the dragon is a symbol of evil. In some legends, the dragon is a robber who loves treasures. In some legends, the dragon is even a villain who likes to rob beautiful human girls. But there is only one thing that everyone in the world knows. I thought that dragons just have the appearance of beasts, but I never thought that dragons could also transform into humans. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 483. Al, who had fallen to the ground and barely had the strength to raise his head, sneezed loudly and struggled to shake the huge dragon head. It was now greatly weakened and could no longer speak dragon language, because every dragon language it was all filled with magic, and all the oil in its body was exhausted, and it couldn't even utter a single word. Lily sighed, looking at its powerlessness to transform into a human form, and whispered strange words in her mouth. After being promoted, she had a new dragon language magic, which is the Dragon God's Blessing. The Dragon God's Blessing is one of the dragon language magics given by the Dragon God to each sacred golden dragon after promotion. Each dragon can only use it 3 times in its life. It can restore the dragon's full energy in an instant, regardless of the depleted magic power. It is still a severely injured body, and regardless of whether the dragon being blessed is someone else or oneself, as long as the person being blessed is still breathing, it will definitely feel the Dragon God's blessing in an instant and recover as before. Using this spell requires strong magic affinity, which is impossible for ordinary dragons to do. Therefore, only after being promoted to a sacred dragon can you get the inheritance of this dragon language magic. Lily chanted the spell in her mouth, and a lot of the light elements began to gather around Al. Long Bei's body was originally a golden dragon. Such a dragon was born with the power of light. Light can originally dispel all shadows and darkness. This magic was when Lily used it, it was even more powerful, but unfortunately, as the originally dim luster in Al's eyes gradually regained its luster, Lin Xiao on the side also looked like she was having a lot of use, and even the things she was holding in her arms were lifted. One time. At that moment, Lily felt the evil power coming from Al's body, and subconsciously looked at what Lin Xiao was holding in her arms. "Thank you, my friend." The giant dragon that was about to die just now uttered human words. Its figure began to shrink rapidly, and soon turned into a tall and thin young man with red hair and eyes about 1.9 meters tall. There was excitement in his heart, and he subconsciously put his hand on Lily's shoulder. "My friend, you have been promoted. Does the patriarch know?" Al was wearing red clothes at the moment. Although his face has returned to rosy, his figure is obviously much thinner than the strong one he remembered in Long Bahi's memory. Lily patted him on the back. "Al, what on earth is going on?" When people around saw the giant dragon transforming into a human form, many subconsciously took a step back. Many soldiers even knew it was useless. But he still blocked the shield in front of himself. In the center of the messy square, apart from Lin Jiao, who was not far away with her arms folded together as if holding something, Al and Lily were the only ones standing opposite each other. When Al heard Lily's words, Al had a wry smile in his eyes and hesitated. After a moment, he shook his head subconsciously. "Ahi. It's nothing. I have discredited myself with the Dragon Clan. Now that I have become a humble human servant, I have no face to return to the Dragon Clan, and I have no face to meet the Dragon God even after I die." When Al said this, his expression was a little desperate. His eyes gradually showed a bit of perseverance. When he talked about humble humans, it seemed as if he was being reviled because he violated the contract. The originally rosy cheeks turned a little pale in an instant, and he coughed twice. Lily couldn't help but smile bitterly. The strong dragon could actually cough like a weak human. This shows how weak Al has become at this moment. What's more, Lily is not a fool. From what Al said about humble humans, she could tell that Al probably didn't care about Lin Jiao at all. What kind of affection was there? There was a folk legend that the giant fire dragon admired Lin Jiao's beauty and intelligence and fell in love with her and was willing to stay with her and become her slave. Now it sounded like nonsense. But why didn't Al want to? Lily felt a little weird when she told the truth. "Al, I heard that you fell in love with Lin Jiao, so you took the initiative to become her slave. Is this true?" When Lily asked, Al almost jumped up as if he had been insulted. "I fell in love with her." In the eyes of a werewolf, no matter how beautiful a sheep is, what attraction does it have besides food? Al said this very loudly. When Lily asked Al if he fell in love with her and became his slave, Lin Jiao's cheeks subconsciously flushed with blushes, and she showed a bit of pride on her face. But at the next moment, Al's retort without hesitation was like a slap on her face, making her face instantly look ugly. Dragons and humans are originally two different races. The dragons are a superior race that is loved by the Creator God. They are completely different from the fragile humans. If we compare the strength and weakness, it is like wolves and sheep. Even if Lin Jiao she is the most beautiful sheep among the sheep tribe, but in the eyes of the wolves, apart from her being food, how can we tell whether she is beautiful or not? In the past, Lin Jiao's achievements made humans habitually mythologize her and put many words of praise on her. No one thought about the authenticity of it. Now Al retorted, and the imperial capital square was surrounded by people because of the movement here. More and more people were stunned for a moment, and then began to think deeply, with doubtful looks on their faces. "Al," Lin Jiao shouted angrily. She felt ashamed and a little angry at the moment. It was a very honorable thing for her to conquer the Dragon Clan, which was originally aloof. But at this time, her slave but she showed no sign of being submissive to her, which made Lin Jiao a little embarrassed. She couldn't help but think of what a certain eternal empress in her previous life had said. For untamed horses, the only way to scare them is to use a whip. If the fierce horse refuses to obey, hit it on the head with a hammer. If it still can't be tamed, it should be killed early. Lin Jiao was a strong woman before she traveled to another world. She is not the kind of weak-hearted person who cries and cries. The girl who is assertive, this dragon has actually had no effect on her for a long time. Now, it has no way to help her. The reason why she has never abandoned it is because it has no place to go. If I had known it would hold me back, I should have been more decisive like the Eternal Empress. Lin Jiao's loud shout made Al shudder subconsciously. I don't know whether it was because of the contract effect or the reason why Lin Jiao was so scary in Al's heart. Lily sighed again, confirming that Al was not in love with her like the legend said. After asking Lin Jiao, he continued to talk. Then since you are not in love with Lin Jiao and don't like her, why are you willing to accept the contract and become her servant? When will the dragon clan be willing to become a human servant? Al himself is a dragon, and coupled with his simple personality, for a dragon who has been on Dragon Island all year round and has never dealt with complex and cunning creatures like humans, even if he has lived for tens of millions of years, he may not be able to calculate it. Humanity. Al is a fire dragon and has a violent temper. When he heard Lily's words, he almost jumped up as if he was insulted. At the beginning, I went down the mountain to look for you on the order of the clan leader, but I could not find you after traveling across the entire continent. However, I smelled your breath in the Kaizen Empire. I followed the breath to the Lin family and saw Lin Jiao holding one of your. I asked her where she got the scales. Impulsively, Al told the story of how he entered the mainland and how he met Lin Jiao. When Lin Jiao discovered that Lily could do magic and left suddenly, she had the idea that Lily might be a hidden master. She thought that Lily might have left some precious magic items behind when she left in a hurry. So I hurriedly went to look for Long Beihi's original room. I wonder if Long Beihi's fate in the plot was already destined to be involved with Lin Jiao later. The original Long Beihi had not left the Dragon Island to fight with the demons in the Abyss territory. When he was injured, the demons would scratch him and drop a scale. The dragon's own claws and scales are his own things to the dragon. The dragon believes that if the body is to be complete, it must fall and return to its roots. So Long Beihi always carries the scale with him. This thing is of no use to Long Beihi itself. Although the power of the golden dragon inside is still somewhat residual, it is not much, but it is still a treasure for ordinary mortals, let alone the power inside. The power of the dragon can intimidate other monsters. If a master craftsman can find the scale to make it into a heart-protecting armor, it will be more than enough. Lin Jiao found such a good thing among Long Beihi's belongings and was ecstatic at the time. She found that she could clearly sense the magic elements around her every day after holding this baby. The reason why Lin Jiao's magic qualifications were low was because her magic affinity was not strong enough and her sensitivity was low. She originally thought she had this when a piece of dragon scale would turn him from a waste material into a genius. He didn't expect that the good luck would not stop there. One day, a strong red-haired young man who called himself Al came to the door and named Long Beihi. Long Beihi had actually left, but Al said that he smelled his breath here. Lin Jiao had a flash of inspiration at that time, and somehow she remembered the scales that Long Beihi had left behind. She did not put those scales back at first. A piece of scales remained, but she took a fancy to Al's flaw that although he looked extremely dangerous, he seemed to be simple-minded and easy to deceive, so he made up a trick. When Long Beihi encountered a dangerous situation, she thought at that time that since Al relied on smell to tell whether Lily had left, she thought of the scales again, and boldly guessed that Alzan might not be a human being. She remembered the customs and travel notes of this world that she had inadvertently learned about when she had just traveled through time. I have read in any book that if you face a non-human creature, you can contract it to become your slave beast. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 484. Lin Jiao's own fighting ability is not good. Although she has the dragon scales that Long Beihi once replaced, her magic perception is too low, so no matter how hard she tries, she can't compare to her pair. As a genius sister and brother, and her parents were already looking for a new marriage partner for her, She was not willing to be married off at will as a result of traveling through time. She needed to resist. In that travel book, Lin Jiao had never heard of a magical beast that could transform into a human. If Aldane was really not a human, then he must be a very high-level magical beast. If he had such a powerful fighter in the future, the world would be different from now on. Let yourself go sideways. Who would dare to bully me then? Even the Lin family can no longer decide on their own marriage. If Al is not a monster, he will be disappointed once. There is no loss. The result will be exactly the same as now. At most, he will take a gamble. If he wins, the sea and the sky will be brighter. If you lose, the result will still be the same as before, no loss. Before she traveled back in time in her previous life, Lin Jiao was a senior white-collar worker. She knew that doing business meant taking risks, and sometimes she had to try boldly for profit. What's more, this time there was no risk at all, and the rewards were considerable. For a real businessman, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As for whether she is doing this to others, she is not the kind of virgin White Lotus. She is a self-reliant woman in the new era. She would rather be CAO would rather she betray the world than let the world betray her, so she coaxed Al into signing a contract with her. Al is strong. However, she was not very experienced in the world, so she could not compete with a woman like Lin Jiao who had lived in 2 lifetimes, so she was quickly deceived into signing a blood contract. By the time she realized what she was doing, it was already too late to regret it. At this moment, Al told the truth impulsively. Lily was speechless for a moment. She carefully recalled Long Beihi's memory. It was only after searching through the memory for a long time that she remembered that there was such a scale. Because of the plot, Ryu Beihi is the direct victim of Shanglin Jiao's deception. Therefore, the strongest and most direct memory I have after accepting his memory is that he was fooled by Lin Xiao, and therefore regretted it terribly. In the previous life, it was Long Beihi himself who was fooled, and the scale never appeared in the plot, so Long Beihi subconsciously ignored this thing, as his mind was filled with strong regrets about being deceived by Lin Xiao. He couldn't remember this scale. After Nature Lily took over his body, the first thing that impressed him the most was Lin Xiao's deception and protecting Long Island. Of course, he couldn't remember the scale either. If Al hadn't mentioned the scale at this moment, Lily wouldn't have thought about it at all. After searching through the memory of the original owner, it dawned on her and she couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm sorry for you. Although this matter actually has nothing to do with Lily, her subconscious reaction at the moment she received the original owner's body was to return to Dragon Island according to the original owner's thoughts before his death in the plot. After all, the biggest regret of the original owner in his previous life was that he could not return to his roots and was buried in a foreign land. But after all, Al was deceived by Lin Jiao because of his subconscious behavior. This negligence harmed Al's life. He was named as the Dragon God. The contracted servant cannot be released at all. If this blood contract is to be lifted, I am afraid that only the Creator God who sets all the rules in this world can do it. But in this plot, the so-called Creator God actually never appeared at all. Lily looked at the depressed young man in front of her and felt helpless. Al obviously regretted telling the truth on impulse. Hearing Lily's words, he shook his head quickly. It has nothing to do with you, Ahi. It's just me who is too stupid. When I came out, my father told me that all human beings are cunning creature. I was careless in the eyes of humans. Dragons are a mysterious and powerful species, and in the eyes of dragons, humans are also cunning and cunning. When the people around heard Al's words, they looked at the original. The eyes of Lin Xiao, who was as pure and kind as a fairy, looked a little strange. Although humans are all selfish, if others encountered Lin Xiao's situation, they might make the same decision as her, but now in public with her lower body exposed, Lin Xiao was so glorious before, but now she was so embarrassed. Al, What are you talking about? Come back here. Lin Jiao felt ashamed and angry when everyone around her was silent and staring at her. Without thinking, she prepared to use the power of the blood contract to kill Al after turning into a dragon and recalling the pet space. After humans and dragons signed a master-servant contract, the dragon no longer belonged to an individual, but was an existence affiliated with humans. Al now no longer has freedom, but is like a part of his master. Like a decoration, even his own thoughts cannot be retained. If Lin Jiao wants to recall him to the pet space, even if he does not want to return to that cage, he will not be able to control his behavior at all. Lily saw that Al's cheek began to twitch uncontrollably, and dragon scales began to appear on his face and neck, but he gritted his teeth and endured it, and the veins on his forehead were already jumping. It was obvious that he was resisting the power of the blood contract at this time. Lin Jiao said, still chanting the spell. An unknown fire surged up in Lily's heart. In the plot, Long Bei he was treated as an equal by Lin Jiao. Lin Jiao never thought that if he hadn't signed a contract with her, why does she, a weak human being, control these giant dragons? If the dragon Bei he in the plot didn't like her and didn't give her half of his strength, lifespan, and talent, she would even be just trash. If Al hadn't been deceived by her, why should she pretend to be the master and look down on Al at this time? Huh. Lily snorted and spread her palms. Lin Xiao, who was chanting a spell, paused for a moment. A patch of scales about the size of a palm flew from the chest she was holding, which seemed to be stained with a bit of black air. Came out, and then a black shadow also jumped out and grabbed Lily. Although the dragon's body was very hard, Lily knew the details of this black cat, and even she had recited the body protection spell, but she was still attracted by this black cat. As soon as he scratched it, a bloody mark appeared on his wrist, but the black cat did not take advantage, and was slapped by Lily and fell straight to the ground. Lily's blow was so powerful that when the black cat fell to the ground, it even opened a deep pit in the ground. The cat in the pit let out a whimpering warning sound, and its eyes turned into vertical pupils. Suddenly, two black wings stretched out from its back, fluttered its wings and flew precariously into the sky. It reached out and put the paw that had just grabbed Lily to its mouth and licked it, with a look of human greed on its furry face. Ola, Lin Jiao's voice of chanting the spell suddenly stopped. When she saw that the black cat was injured, she called out anxiously. After seeing that the black cat was not seriously injured, she breathed a sigh of relief. Then she shouted angrily at Lily, "You thief, give me back my things." She stretched out her hand to grab the scale floating in the air, and Lily sneered, "You know who the thief is, this thing doesn't belong to you, a woman who stole other people's bodies, and a woman who used other people's scales to deceive the dragon clan. Human beings who have made a master-servant contract have the nerve to call others thieves?" The more Lily looked at Lin Xiao, the more she disliked her. She used one hand to catch the scales and the other to slap Lin Xiao away, but the black cat flying in the air grinned and let out a warning whimper. He rushed towards Lily. A pair of round pupils were full of ferocious color, and his teeth were grinning wildly. The hair on his body that was condensed by black demonic energy seemed to be more lush at this time. This black cat is very difficult to deal with. It has a strong body that is not inferior to that of the dragon clan. The key is that its claws are extremely sharp. Even with the dragon clan's unique physical conditions, when it is caught by this black cat, the skin and flesh are torn apart. The key is to be caught. The injured area was actually wrapped in black energy, preventing wound healing. Al, who looked a little tired because Lin Jiao stopped chanting the spell, saw a look of shock in his eyes when he saw this scene. Subconsciously he glanced at Lily and exclaimed, "Demon bastard." The dragon clan and the demon clan have been fighting for many years, and there is an instinctive resentment and displeasure between the two sides towards each other. When Al saw the demon clan at this time, it made a warning sound in its mouth, and it couldn't even control itself and turned into a monster again. The dragon looked like a dragon and roared towards the black cat. Lin Jiao was very anxious when she saw this scene. She suddenly opened her eyes and blocked the black cat. With a flick of her wrist, a long whip was caught in her palm. She threw it out, and the fireball Al originally held in his mouth was swallowed back by him. Injuring the owner under the effect of the blood contract will cause him to suffer 10 times the damage he was about to attack just now. Al quickly turned into a human form and fell from the sky. When Lily saw this scene, the light elements quickly gathered in her palms, and the light magic elements in her body gathered into the shape of a long arrow, aiming at Lin Xiao. Lily stretched out her hand and did as she drew the bow and drew the arrow. The elemental arrow flew directly towards Lin Xiao. Before she could dodge, the long arrow quickly penetrated her body, causing the black cat behind her to let out a scream. The sound comes. At this moment, Lily didn't care to look at Lin Jiao's injuries, and stepped forward to catch Al, who was seriously injured. A large part of Lily's injury to Lin Jiao just now was borne by Al. This is the function of the blood contract. Not only the servant will contribute his strength and qualifications to the master, but also the damage and blows suffered by the master will be divided. Half of it is on the servants. It is precisely because this blood contract is too vicious and mean that today, hundreds of years later, in Fenja continent, except for some low IQ monsters who still suffer from it, many high-level monsters have already suffered. Learned to refuse this blood pact. It was precisely because Lily knew the power of this blood contract that she didn't dare to take any serious action against Lin Xiao, so she was a little restrained in front of Lin Xiao, but Al's injury prevented her from doing so. Hold it back. Now I saw that Al had suffered 10 times the damage from his own fire element attack. There were wounds on his chest and abdomen, which were clearly uninjured just now. His breath was even weaker than before he had received the dragon god's blessing. Even worse. Al, please bear with me. Lily put Al on the ground and began to recite the dragon god's blessing again. She was just halfway through the recitation when Al reached out and grasped the hem of her clothes, shaking her weakly. To start with. No, there was a hint of stubbornness on the young man's pale face. He pursed his lips tightly and his body shivered slightly because of the pain. Logically speaking, the dragon's strong body would not be prone to such serious injuries, but because of Lin, the fragility of the human body will always lead to injuries to some extent, and this injury was more than half of Al's, so he seemed particularly serious at this time. Lin Xiao, who was seriously injured behind her back, although half of her injuries were transferred to Al, she had been living with the demons day and night for more than a year. It was inevitable that her body would be contaminated with some demonic energy, so Lily's light element attack hurt her very seriously. She almost felt as if a fire was cooking her at the wound, which made her face look ugly in pain. She had never endured such suffering in her 2 lives. Needless to say, in her previous life, she died suddenly due to overwork. She had already come to another world before she could feel any discomfort. After arriving in this other world, she had a smooth journey. Shunshui, I didn't suffer anything at all. The pain in her body almost made her cry. Originally, she was thinking about the benefits she had received when Lily recited the dragon god's blessing just now. She was holding back the pain and waiting for Lily to save Al again. She could also share half of it. With the power of the dragon god's blessing, she didn't expect Al to reject Lily's request at this moment, which made Lin Jiao a little angry. Al, are you crazy? Don't you want your life? Let him treat you quickly. Lin Jiao was so painful that her voice was a little sharp at this time. Naturally, she could not maintain the glamour and height that she had worked so hard to create. Seemed a little angry. Shut up. It's you who should shut up. Lily looked back at Lin Xiao, with an indescribable look of disgust on her face, and Lin Xiao was stunned for a moment. Subconsciously, he turned his face away. Do you still want to save him? To save or not to save was like a difficult problem before Lily, if she wanted to save her companion's life. He must use the dragon god's blessing again, but if he uses the dragon god's blessing, besides Al, Lin Xiao and those demons will be rescued. What's more, if things continue like this, he wants to kill the demons on this mission. The mission of the clan lord will never be accomplished because of Yulin Jiao's treachery. If he wants to take action against her and the demon clan leader, she will definitely block Al in front of her, when her former companions become forced to confront each other because of their calculations. Not only Al, but also Long Bei's body was uncomfortable. Lily had done many missions, and she felt a little embarrassed for a while. If she didn't save Al, Long Bei would definitely feel bad about it, but if she rescued him, it would go against her own mission. More importantly, she might have made the strip. Not only would he not be able to complete the task, but he would be dealt with by Lin Jiao and the Abyss Lord together because of the intimidation, leaving him without the ability to fight back. My good friend, please don't worry. Perhaps seeing the embarrassment on Lily's face, Al gritted his teeth, and a pale smile suddenly appeared on his pale face. At this point, she was still thinking about comforting Lily, which made Lily feel a little sad. She really couldn't help but watch him die in front of her because of Long Bei. What's more, if she didn't save him, Long Bei would definitely not be willing to do so. When Lily was about to recite the dragon god's blessing again, Al interrupted her again. A dragon can only use this kind of blessing 3 times in its life, so why waste it on me twice? He seemed to have seen through the world, and the look in his eyes gradually became calmer. The fiery red dragon scales had covered his cheeks, and his dragon tail was uncontrollably thrown out at this time. It was obvious that Al had no with his strength still intact in human form. He looked a bit scary. Many people who gathered around to watch the excitement began to subconsciously hide behind the soldiers holding shields. The overjoyed look on Lin Jiao's face because of Lily's spell turned into a little angry as Al interrupted Lily's words. The black cat that was originally blocked behind her flapped its wings and flew away. It got up and rested on her shoulder. It was now sticking out its tongue to lick the place where it had been injured before. There was a human haze in its eyes. There were no wounds on its body, but the hair on its body that was originally transformed from demonic energy was now. The luster seemed much duller, and it was obvious that it had suffered a lot from the light element just now. At this moment, the black cat suddenly opened its mouth and spoke. "Xiao, don't talk nonsense to him anymore. This is a golden dragon, and it has been upgraded. Eat it and sacrifice my internal organs. It will be of great benefit to me to lift the seal." The black cat had a greedy look on his face, and stretched out his scarlet tongue to lick the corner of his mouth. He spoke close to Lin Jiao's ear. Except for Al and Lily, who were standing not far away, no one in the crowd standing far away heard what he said. Lin Jiao hesitated for a while, then suddenly nodded. The black cat turned around and licked her cheek. A blush spread involuntarily from Lin Jiao's neck to her face, making her otherwise ordinary face look a bit delicate. "Got up." Lin Jiao reached out and brushed her messy long hair, and began to recite a spell in her mouth. The black cat also rushed towards Lily like black lightning. At first it was very small when it jumped to the ground, but with every step it ran, its body became bigger and bigger. In the end, its body became like a moving hill, and it became the image of a black tiger. Lily threw Al out of the fighting circle first, and when the tiger rushed over, it began to show its original shape. The crowd around them once again made an uproar when they saw the situation, and everyone began to retreat desperately. The human continent has been doing this for thousands of years. It is rare to see a giant dragon once, but I didn't expect to see it twice today. A giant dragon shining with golden light began to tangle with the tiger exuding black energy. The magic wand held by Lin Jiao also sent out some attacks from time to time to hit Lily. Although it was neither painful nor itchy, it was still a bit annoying. Lily subconsciously turned her head and spit out a breath of dragon's breath at Lin Jiao. Lin Jiao's face turned green and white, but she didn't even dodge when the dragon's breath sprayed on her body. Even if Lin Jiao screamed, "Al," who was not far away, also started to scream. Only then did Lily understand Lin Jiao's plan. She was stunned for a moment, and the Abyss Lord had already bit her. Physically, in addition to the sharp pain, there is also the pain of being invaded by demonic energy. The tiger had a look of enjoyment on its face, and Lily felt her blood draining away. Her strength also began to drain away. She struggled desperately, and dragons and tigers fought in the air. On the ground, Lin Jiao spit out a mouthful of blood with a look of pride on her face. After thinking about it, she also jumped into the ring. She relied on Lily to not dare to attack her, so she specifically looked for opportunities for the black tiger, and it took less than a moment. Lily's body was already covered in scars, and several scales fell off. This made Lily's aura become a little sluggish. When the two sides separated again after a round, the Abyss Lord's aura was much stronger than before. At this moment, he was holding a scale torn off from Lily's body in his paws and bringing it to his mouth. Chewed. Ah hey, I'm sorry. I can't hurt you anymore. Seeing such a scene not far away, Al, who had almost transformed into a dragon, suddenly shouted loudly. Originally, the Dragon Clan was a proud race. Originally, the Dragon Clan should be when facing a strong enemy, he fought side by side with his companions, but at this time, he became one of the burdens to his companions. Al's eyes slowly became firmer. He was deceived because of Long Bei's scales. He should be the most unlucky at the moment, but Al apologized to himself at this time. Lily turned into a human form and landed on the ground. Her chest couldn't help rising and falling, and her whole body was covered with blood. The pain was filled with helplessness and resentment. As a dragon, I was deceived by humans and lived in the same room with the dirty demons for 2 years. Dragon God, I'm sorry. Al coughed twice, and blood came from the corners of his mouth, and there was blood in his eyes. The vertical pupils that only appear in the animal form have appeared, his lower limbs have completely transformed into dragons, and his hands have slowly turned into giant red claws, but now he sat up with difficulty but determination. In the name of the God of creation, I, Al Wovason, am willing to bear the name of a traitor. Dragon God above, I am willing to swear on my life to terminate the blood contract with Lin Xiao. To this end, I am willing to use my life from hell. The fire of the abyss, cleanse my soul. Al began to recite a spell in his mouth. He read every word carefully, as if he was afraid of saying it wrong. When Lily heard this, she couldn't help being shocked. This spell was set by the Creator God for non-human races. Next, every non-human race knows such a spell. This is a blood contract spell to dissolve the relationship with human servants. Every advanced race that has given birth to wisdom will automatically accept the inheritance in their minds from birth and get this spell. Information, but no one dares to read it easily. Because once a blood contract of servant relationship is signed, whether it is the master or the servant, when the contract is terminated, they will definitely suffer the backlash from the contract and suffer the burning of the fire of hell. The pain will not only be felt from the bone marrow, but also the blood contract. It rises until every drop of blood in the body is burned alive. There is no need to mention the pain. What's more important is that the price will be wiped out from now on. Are you crazy? The black tiger ate the scales for a moment, and Lin Jiao shouted angrily, "You idiot, stop it!" Clusters of tiny flames began to slowly ignite on Al's body. Groups of black burnt spots began to appear under his originally red scales. Thin black smoke began to rise from his body. Lin Jiaoxi also began to feel a little hot on her body. She even stretched out her legs and stamped her feet as if her body was on fire, as if to get rid of the burning feeling in her body. Al Lily looked back at Al in shock, only to see him smiling and continuing to read, "Al Wolverine is willing to sacrifice his soul to terminate the contract." The surroundings were so quiet that only the sound of Al reciting a spell could be heard. This incantation was a rule set by the Creator God, and everyone present could hear it. When Al recited the words to terminate the contract, the fire on his body began to burn brighter and brighter. A loud, crackling sound came, and a look of pain and relief appeared on his face. I'm finally free. It's been almost 2 years. Because of this dirty contract, I couldn't return to the embrace of God the Father. I'm finally free. A sound that sounded like crying and laughing came from Al's mouth, and his tone made people laugh. The man felt a little sad, and a large amount of flame surrounded him. Lin Jiao screamed, "Stop, stop." In addition to the pain of breaking the blood contract, the person who takes the initiative to break it will be burned to death by the flames from hell. Even the owner of the contract will inevitably feel the pain. Although he will not die in the end, he will still feel the pain. This is also the only pain that the owner will share when the servant is hurt in the master-servant contract. This is what the Creator God hopes to use. Pain. Let people use pain to remember the pain of breaking the blood contract. 2 years. Al's eyes seemed to be filled with fire, and he was now covered with scales. The face that looked very ferocious because of the pain was now filled with an indescribable joy and relaxation. He had been talking back and forth for almost 2 years. For a race that longed for freedom and pride, it was impossible to imprison him. For 2 years, it was as if someone had cut off his limbs and put him in a cage. Al had been following Lin Jiao these days. In addition to his body being tortured, what was also tortured was that his originally proud self-esteem was trampled to the ground. Lily's body seemed to feel the same thing, and she shed 2 tears involuntarily. "Good brother, the dragon clan will be left to you from now on." The flames on Al's body became more and more intense. Hearing the sound of the male flames, he sighed, and his body slowly spread out like fireworks and firecrackers. The bright flames it started to splash everywhere, and it was like a rain of fire in the sky. The scene was so beautiful that people couldn't help but want to take a photo of this moment. The surrounding temperature suddenly increased, and Al's breath spread. Lily stretched out her hands, and a small piece of burning flame fell into the palm of her hand. With the scorching temperature, it slowly burned out. The temperature quickly the coldness fell, and there was only a little burning ashes left in Lily's palm. It was as if the helplessness after the prosperity came to an end in her heart. The dust gradually fell to the ground, and Al's breath completely disappeared from the world. Lin Jiao suddenly vomited a large mouthful of blood, and her face instantly turned pale and ugly. If Al died in an ordinary way or was killed by someone, then the contract between him and Lin Jiao is still there, and he may have a soul after his physical death. He will return to the embrace of the dragon god, and as long as the contract exists, Lin Jiao will naturally enjoy half of his strength and lifespan, but at this moment, Al would rather suffer the pain of being burned by hellfire than break the contract with her. Then the blood contract between the two no longer existed, and naturally Lin Jiao could no longer share his strength and talent. Lin Jiao felt a little horrified that her originally strong body began to slowly become weaker. The deep magic power began to leak out, and even the leather armor she wore that felt so easy to wear now felt unusually heavy, weighing her down and making her breathless. No, Lin Jiao's body that was originally floating in the air began to fall rapidly like a deflated balloon, and fell to the ground with a bang. The feeling I had in the past that I had the world at my fingertips suddenly disappeared. Dispersed, being beaten from a god to a mortal made Lin Jiao unable to accept her transformation for a while. She seemed like a rich man with billions of properties, but she lost everything overnight and turned back into a poor person. Which made her go a little crazy. If she hadn't had it before, she wouldn't have thought there would be such a strong contrast, but now that she had strong strength and then let her go back to the cowardly and incompetent time, Lin Jiao couldn't accept this change. "Al, you are a waste, Lin Jiao began to curse in a sharp voice. The famous socialite of the Kaizen Empire at this time was like a shrew, and began to curse the dragon that just disappeared. Although the people around him had only heard a general idea just now, they almost all knew that the previous dragon named Al had bought his freedom at the cost of his life. Even if many people didn't necessarily know who this Al was before, they didn't know. Although they understood his story, they were inevitably affected by his mood. When they heard Lin Jiao scolding her angrily, many people were silent and did not speak. However, many people felt that Lin Jiao, who used to be like this in everyone's hearts, was silent. The godlike girl began to feel a little disgusted. "I want you to die." Lily stretched out her hand to keep the piece of ashes that Al had left in her palm. But in the end, what he held was still blank, because Al was burned by the fire of hell and burned cleanly. There is no more Al Wolfson in this world. The ashes he left behind actually turned into magic elements. It disappeared into the sky at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, Lily only felt a nameless anger twisting in her chest. She began to recite dragon language magic, and a large amount of light magic hit the black cat and Lin Jiao like hail. At this time, there was no need to throw a rat weapon after Lily took action. No more scruples. Lin Jiao was so frightened that her face turned pale. At this time, the Abyss Lord grabbed Lin Jiao and flew up. However, he himself was still sealed and imprisoned a lot of strength. At this time, stimulated by anger, the surrounding magic elements rushed towards Lily's body like a tide. "Come over, light is born to overcome darkness." The Lord of the Abyss was sealed by the Golden Dragon God, which undoubtedly made it even more difficult for him to deal with the crazy Lily. In addition, Lin Xiao, who had lost her strength at this time, became vulnerable. In order to after saving Lin Xiao, she took a few blows. The aura that had become plump from eating the flesh and blood of Lily's body weakened again. This is not the solution. When the Lord of the Abyss was hit by the magic light bullet again with a cold face, black blood beads appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he stretched out his tongue to lick it. Lin Jiao was so scared that she hugged his body tightly, which made him move even more slowly. After receiving another blow, he looked obviously a little impatient. "Human magicians, are you going to watch this evil dragon destroy the entire Kaizen Empire?" Lin Jiao was deeply afraid that she would be abandoned by the black cat in front of her. At this moment, Lily looked like she obviously wanted her life, which really frightened Lin Xiao. She started to scream, and her voice became louder and louder. Many people who were watching the excitement couldn't help but fell silent when they heard her words. Lily sneered. He waved his hand and said, "It's just a personal grudge between me and Lin Xiao." Before she could finish her words, several people in white magic robes flew into the air. Two great sword sects with golden fighting aura all over their bodies also stood in front of the three great magi stirs. "Those who are not from our race must have different hearts. The human world cannot tolerate the existence of aliens. The goddess of light is above. Please give us strength." The magicians also began to chant spells in unison, and the originally bright sky began to darken. These great magi stirs actually joined forces to summon the forbidden spell. If only these great magi stirs Lily were not afraid, but there were still two great sword sects, and there was a black cat watching eagerly on the other side. Lily looked at Lin Xiao, who was quickly surrounded by human beings. It was obvious that there was no way to kill her today, and Lily felt a little depressed. For the dragon shape, she rushed down and breathed out a breath of dragon breath. The forbidden curse hit her body and made her sway slightly. Then Lily didn't want to fight and quickly flew away. Lin Jiao did have some skills. Rumors that the Kaizen Empire was attacked by evil dragons began to spread quickly throughout the Fenja continent. The reputation of the mysterious dragon clan in the past temporarily made the streets stink. Lily was recovering from her injuries and had not yet returned to the dragon clan. When she heard such rumors, she couldn't help but laugh. Lin Jiao had no magic power and strength at this time. She was just an ordinary useless person. Apart from creating rumors to incite people in the mainland to seek revenge from the dragon clan, she could no longer do anything herself. What? As if influenced by Long Beihe in the plot, and as if because of the stimulation before Al's death, Lily directly returned to Long Island and brought the news of Al's death to the tribe. While the dragons were fighting to the death to protect humans, humans regarded the dragons as an evil race. A group of great mages even began to form a dragon-slaying team and began to head towards the end of the Snow Ridge forest. They had already fallen into Lin Jiao's hands. That sharp sword, in order to lift the seal for the lover in her heart, Lin Jiao chose to borrow the sword to kill people. Borrowing the strength of the entire human race, she wanted to kill the entire dragon clan. When the time comes, the Abyss Lord will absorb the original power of the entire dragon clan and unlock it. Seal. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 485. Not only for the legendary wealth owned by the Dragon Clan, but also for the supreme reputation of the Dragon Slayer, the entire human race began to boil over for the Dragon Clan. Lily guessed Lin Jiao's plan and discussed it directly with the leader of the Dragon Clan. Protecting the entire human race and guarding the Abyss territory was originally the inherent mission of all Dragon Clan, but at this time, the situation has reached a point where humans and Dragon Clan cannot coexist. At the critical moment, Al's death in the Dragon Clan aroused the anger of the entire Dragon Clan, especially the repayment and cunning of humans, which made many Dragon Clan feel disgusted with humans. Lily proposed that the Dragon Clan leave this Abyss territory and temporarily retreat. The news was agreed by many Dragon Clans. One by one, the giant dragons flew away from the place they had guarded for many years. The bones of many dragon ancestors were buried here. Many of the dragon ancestors even died here because of this. But now, because humans listened to the rumors, these dragons were forced to leave. Native land. The originally suppressed demons in the Abyss crawled out. In less than a year, when a group of great magicians and great swordsmen arrived at the deserted Longshan Mountain, they found only an empty island and an island that exuded, in the abyss of black energy. In addition to many dragon bones, there are also some demon skeletons. The truth about the Dragon Clan's history of protecting human beings was seen by this group of people. The Dragon Clan is not evil as the world imagines. They are unknown to humans. In the corner, silently guarding the barrier for demons to enter the human world with their own blood and pain, becoming a shield in front of the human world. When many people see the situation, they naturally know that they have been deceived. But a group of giant dragons have disappeared. At this moment, the human world is in an unprecedented crisis. A large number of abyssal demons have poured into the fertile land of the human world. Many demons feed on humans with magical elements. For a time, the continent is full of blood and chaos, and everyone is in danger. This is a melee that has happened in the plot. Later generations of Fenja continent called it the battle to defend mankind. In the plot, Lin Jiao leads the human world to drive away demons, and finally becomes the uncrowned king. But now Lin Jiao is powerless. She no longer has the help of Long Bei, and without the help of Al, she even has nothing. The most important thing was that she chose to stand beside the Lord of the Abyss without hesitation because of love, in order to avenge her lover. In order to let her lover lift the seal, she provoked the mainland to deal with the Dragon Clan. After what happened, she became a public enemy of the entire human world. The reason why the Abyss Lord of the Demon Clan is called a Demon Clan, no matter how handsome he is, no matter how cool his strength is. Nothing can change the fact that he is a demon at heart and has no humanity. After Lin Jiao has lost her role, her strength, and her use value, why should she make the Abyss Lord like her? How can she talk about love and loyalty with her? Where can there be true love between different races? One is a demon and the other is a human being, just like a wolf will never fall in love with a sheep, and a lion and a white rabbit will never live in peace. When one is strong and the other is weak, the food chain is not balanced. If we are not on an equal footing, there will naturally be no talk of feelings. Lin Jiao originally looked down on Long Bei, who was willing to become her slave because he liked her. Now she has become a useless person. Naturally, a waste is not worthy of being loved by the Lord of the Abyss. However, Lin Jiao in the plot is the one who abandons others. Now it's just her turn to be abandoned by others. Once the Abyss Lord abandoned her and no longer acted as her guardian, Lin Jiao quickly became the object of beatings from the goddess in the human world. Many people gnashed their teeth with hatred when mentioning her, wishing to eat her alive. Lin Jiao she hid after the incident, and now she has become a street rat, afraid to show her face again. When the human continent was about to be occupied by the demons, a group of dragons began to descend from the sky. When they saw the demons, they began to massacre and ignored the gratitude of humans. Many people felt ashamed and hated Lin Jiao to the point of gnashing their teeth. After nearly 10 years, a group of dragons began to wander around Fenja continent. The demons were arrogant at the beginning, but were later killed to only a few. Some demons hid and did not dare to appear again. The human world slowly began to return to its previous peace. A group of remaining humans formed a principality. Dragon statues were placed in front of the country, and the most outstanding statue was naturally a golden dragon. Because Long Bei did something wrong in the plot, the reason is that in order to fulfill his wish in this life, Lily naturally has to kill the demons twice as much to make up for the people. Therefore, in these 10 years of battle, her figure has appeared in front of the human world at most. After the dust settled and the demons on the mainland no longer dared to show their true colors, a group of dragons returned to Dragon Island and hid in the human world, scratching their faces so that no one could recognize them. Lin Xiao, who dared to reveal her real name to others, could only get by begging every day. The empire had just been established. She had disfigured herself and was afraid that people would kill her if they recognized her. Therefore, she could not find a good job. She had to go to the empire every day. Receive a meager guarantee, which is a small amount of food that the empire guarantees that humans will not starve to death. It cannot fill the stomach at all. After experiencing the disaster, the entire continent has been devastated, and many food ingredients have disappeared. I am afraid it will take nearly 100 years to recuperate and recuperate. It is precisely because of this that Lin Jiao was once again scolded by humans. The Lin family of the former Duke's palace was notorious because of her. At this time, even if Lin Jiao felt that she had many ideas in her heart, she did not dare to publicize them. When she walked through the square and saw the lily statue on the square, she remembered her past scenery. In the past, her statue had also been erected in the long-lost Kaizen Empire Plaza. How beautiful she was at that time. Nowadays, she doesn't even dare to show her true face to others. Lin Jiao couldn't help but feel a little sad when she thought about her time travel. She thought about the past, the prosperous life in the Duke's palace, and how she was supported by everyone. Thinking of the scene when the Crown Prince pursued her, a blurred color appeared in her eyes. A woman wearing a general's uniform took a handkerchief and wiped the dust off Lily's statue. When she saw Lin Jiao standing in front of this white statue with a handsome face, she chased after her with some boredom. "Go away, don't tarnish the statue of your lord." She is Maya, one of the female generals of the empire, and she was also the one who saw Lily's appearance with her own eyes that day. From then on, she was impressed by the grace she saw that day, and it was also the person she later painted. A portrait of Lily was created, allowing humans to create a jade statue for Lily with a human upper body and a dragon tail wrapped around the lower body. Maya stretched out her hand to touch the tail of Lily's statue, with a look of obsession in her eyes. Lin Jiao beside her was attracted by her. I was awakened by the sound of scolding, and when I saw the statue with its head lowered and smiling, I began to feel unwilling. Now that Lin Jiao knew Lily's identity, she was her former teacher Long Bei. She began to feel a little regretful. If she had known Long Bei's identity and seduced him properly, she would have been an uncle. She didn't believe that she couldn't make him fall in love with her by her own means. She could still vaguely remember the years when Long Bei taught her etiquette, and she was almost obsessed with immersing herself in those memories every day. Long Bei is gentle and kind. It's a pity that he didn't reveal his true face earlier. If she had known his true face earlier, Lin Jiao felt that she would have fallen in love with him instead of blindly falling in love with the so-called demon, that wolf-hearted and dog-eating person. The demon clan made Lin Jiao gnash her teeth with hatred every time she thought about it. Her whole life was ruined by this damn demon. I know this person. I know his name is Long Bei. Lin Jiao felt a little jealous when she saw Maya touching the lily statue closely. If she had known earlier, she would definitely cherish it. She will become the wife of the dragon clan and will have a strong man to protect her from now on. She will become the envy of all women in the world. She will live a good life. She will have a gentle and considerate husband, instead of being even close to her now. His statues are considered a blasphemy to others. Lin Jiao felt a little unwilling, and she began to mutter, "He was my teacher. He had been with me for several years." Many people became a little angry when they heard this. Lily has now become a national idol. Her powerful strength and handsome face have attracted the hearts of many human girls. Now they see an ugly girl. The woman said that she had been with her idol for many years. Many people were angry and cursed at Lin Jiao. Lin Jiao felt very unwilling. She did not tell lies. What she said was all true. Unfortunately, no one believed it. She, in the end, was beaten by a group of angry girls, and she was thrown to the street with barely a breath. Other time-traveling women who entered another world either became goddesses or became famous. However, during her journey to another world, she had a chance to become the wife of a powerful dragon clan, but in the end she ended up like this. Lin Jiao finally couldn't hold it back. Began to cry loudly. On the other side of the world, Lily inherited the position of leader of the dragon clan and has been guarding the dragon island ever since. The escaped lord in the Abyss territory was captured by a group of dragons. In the past 10 years, Lily has already made another breakthrough. After breaking the seal in her body, her strength reached a higher level. She led her tribe to seal the unwilling Abyss Lord again and exiled him back to the Abyss territory. He would suffer from the bitter cold environment of the Abyss territory every day. If he wanted to recover again, the previous strength may take tens of millions of years, but if he can endure tens of millions of years to plan to escape from the Abyss once, he may not be able to endure the second tens of millions of years to escape from the Abyss again. This time, Long Bei's wish was still successfully fulfilled. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 486. This time the mission was completed and she returned to the starry sky. Lily subconsciously reached out and patted her chest. After many years, her flat chest returned to her body again. Lily breathed a sigh of relief. When Li Yangzi saw this action, her eyes darkened. He continued, "The mission is completed, are you tired?" Lily nodded, and when she saw the imperial concubine placed in the starry sky, she subconsciously lay down. She was always tense during the mission, especially the frequent battles with the demons. Although Lily had advanced later, but sometimes it was inevitable that she would still feel injured and tired, and she would always be on tenterhooks. She did not completely relax until she returned to the starry sky. Li Yangzi lay down next to him, stretched out his hand to hug Lily's upper body into his arms. The hem of his clothes brushed between Lily's face, and there was a cold and clean breath like nature on his body, which made people breathe a sigh of relief when they smelled it. Lily automatically found a comfortable position, put her face against his chest, put her arms around his waist, and let Li Yangzi reach out to stroke her hair. The two did not speak, and Lily's information appeared again in the starry sky. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 84, out of 100. Appearance, 90, out of 100. Physical strength, 77, 100 full points. Force, 51, out of 100 points. Spirit, 80, out of 100. Reputation, 44, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te I Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Advanced Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements, and Bagua, slightly dabbled in. Charisma, 65, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. It has been several times that the attribute values have not increased significantly. When Lily looked at the harvest this time, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. When she saw Xin Chen practicing physical skills, she suddenly remembered something. You once said that if I teach my skills to others, won't my own skills disappear? In the previous mission, Lily taught Yin Xiaoyu the star training technique, but returned to the starry sky. She didn't notice it for a while, but then she remembered it and returned to the starry sky. But because of Yingxiu's sudden disappearance, she didn't bother to ask. Now she thought about Lily asking this question. Li Yangzi reached out and touched her hair, her eyelids drooped, and she looked a little lazy. Yingxiu's soul has completely disappeared. Even the things he learned have naturally returned. Lily had taught others the 9 Yang Manual during her first mission, and in the end, she almost lost her own skills because of this. This time I also taught Yinjiu Xin Chen physical training. The reason why the skill has not disappeared and the light has become dim is because Yinjiu's soul has been sacrificed due to the disappearance of Li Beihe. He no longer exists in Li Yangzi in any world ever created. It will never be reincarnated again, if Lily's skills are compared to a big pie. During the mission, she distributed the pie to others. If others ate it, the pie would naturally be gone. In Yingxiu's case, the others no longer existed, so naturally the pie he owned would be returned. So the skills under Lily's name have not disappeared. Speaking of Yingxiu's disappearance, Lily felt a little sad again. Li Yangzi's slender hand gently stroked her head, slowly calming her down again. What's so uncomfortable? Some people just disappear when they disappear. Aren't you still with me? Li Yangzi was keenly aware of her low mood at that moment, and there was a flash in her eyes because she was still thinking about Yinjiu. Feeling unhappy, he gently caressed Lily's back, and then he picked her up with just a little effort in his arms. Why should you feel so uncomfortable for someone who will disappear for the sake of someone who is irrelevant? Li Yangzi's eyebrows were slightly raised at this time, and his expression looked very indifferent, but the words he accidentally said that he would stay with him made Lily's heart skip a beat. People like Li Yangzi had never said sweet words to her before. But at this moment, he frowned and said something inadvertently, which was not a confession but better than any affectionate confession. At that moment, Lily felt an indescribable throb. She knelt down and sat up straight, her back straight, and suddenly she stretched out her hand. Holding Li Yangzi's face, Li Yangzi subconsciously wanted to grab her hand, but Lily suddenly held his face and pressed it towards her, and lightly touched his lips with her lips. When Li Yangzi was a little stunned, then he pretended to be calm and said, "I want to enter the mission." He didn't expect that mentioning Yinjiu could have such a good thing. The jelly-like touch of soft lips still seemed to remain on his lips. Li Yangzi laughed softly, stretched out his tongue and licked the corner of his mouth. From the corner of his eye, he saw Lily's red earlobes did not come forward to make her angry at this time, but hugged her into his arms, and after a while he responded, "Okay." In the past, Lily was awakened by a sound every time she entered the plot, but this time she entered the mission for a long time, as if she fell into a sweet sleep, and could not wake up no matter what. The surroundings were strangely quiet, and Lily suddenly when he opened his eyes, he was startled by a pale-faced girl with a small haircut leaning over him. He subconsciously reached out and pushed her away, What are you doing? She slept so soundly this time that she felt uncomfortable when she woke up. Cold sweat broke out on Lily's back. She was frightened by the white-faced girl again, and the slap in her hand suddenly hit her face. There was a pop sound, and the girl was slapped so hard that tears suddenly filled her eyes. She hurriedly retracted her head, knelt on the ground and said, "My wife, please forgive me. I just want to see if my wife is awake." Dim lights were burning all around, and through the mosquito net where the mandarin ducks were playing in the water, Lily looked out from the antique wooden lattice window. The bright lanterns under the eaves outside slowly swayed with the wind, and issued a leisurely the sound of creaking, and creaking added a quiet but strange atmosphere to the surroundings out of thin air. Looking at the furnishings in this house, every item has an antique color. There is a landscape screen in the house. This pale girl is wearing an old floral jacket on her upper body and blue cotton trousers on her lower body. It doesn't look like she is here. In ancient times, the body Lily entered seemed to be having a nightmare. Now her whole body was wet with sweat, and her heart was still beating rapidly. The previous slap to this girl was purely a subconscious reaction of the original owner. At this time, Lily slowly stabilized her behavior and felt that she had acted too impulsively. She glanced at the thin girl and exhaled a big breath. "What time is it? Get me some hot water. I need to take a bath and change clothes." The original owner's voice was a little lazy, but it was a little hoarse after waking up from sleep. It sounded a little angry. The little girl kowtowed her head in fear and whispered, "I will go to the kitchen now." Lily nodded, panting again. She lay back on the bed. The clothes she was wearing were already soaked with cold sweat. After she sat up, the wind blew through her heart and made her shiver involuntarily. Even though Lily had already wrapping myself in a quilt, my face was still green and white from the cold, and there was a vague fishy smell coming from the surroundings, but after I smelled it carefully, I could only smell the strong smell of sandalwood in the room. The girl who went to ask for water came back after more than 10 minutes. Behind her were two women, also wearing buttoned coarse cloth jackets. Each brought a bucket of steaming water in and poured it into the room. After the shower room at the back, the two women withdrew respectfully. Lily declined the girl's intention to come and take a shower for her, took off her clothes and entered the shower room separated by the screen, and sat down in the tub. After telling the girl not to disturb her without her permission, Lily washed her hair with soapy soap and closed her eyes and began to absorb the plot this time. The plot world she enters this time is a bit like the early Republic of China, when the old government just fell. Because the prestige of the old royal family and the emperor was not as good as before, warlords from all over the country began to rise one after another decades ago. Guan Bei's grandfather was originally from the Huainan area. An ordinary farmer, when heroes from all over the country came together, also got entangled with a group of villagers who turned into bandits. Because of their loyalty and courage, their reputation slowly grew. After a few years, they occupied the top of a mountain. A small bandit, he eventually became one of the small warlords in the Huainan area. The official family is different from ordinary families. Almost all the descendants of the official family are boys. After Guan Bei's grandfather became rich, he married 11 aunts in total. Except for Zina's aunt who had nothing to live with, the other 10 wives she gave birth to 27 children, each of whom was a boy. Although people at this time believed that having more children would bring happiness, it would be a pity to have more sons but not a girl. What's more, I don't know if Guan Lily's grandfather was a child in his early years. The bandit committed too many crimes after that. Although he had many sons, many of his sons had more or less accidents during their lives when they followed him in the army. In the end, only 9 of the 27 sons were left, and 9 after the marriage of the 2 sons, their wives and concubines became pregnant one after another, and most of the grandchildren they gave birth to were boys. Only when Guan Bei's mother was pregnant in 10 months, she gave birth to the only girl in the Guan family. At first, Mr. Guan was overjoyed and hugged his only granddaughter. Until Guan Bei was 4 or 5 years old, he was still reluctant to let her go and walk alone. He carried her on his back wherever he went. This shows how favored Guan Bei was in the official family. When Guan Bei was 15 years old, Mr. Guan once said that he would give half of the military power of the Guan family to Guan Bei as a dowry to accompany him out. Because of these words, people who came to propose to Guan Bei were almost crushed. Threshold. Guan Bei grew up in the favor of the official family, and was protected like a greenhouse flower by her family. Even in such a chaotic world, she had never felt the hardship of the world, and she was as happy as if she was living in peace. Growing up, I occasionally went out of the house every day to help people in need or go out to play, without any worries. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 487. In order to get half of the official family that the old man had promised, many people tried their best to marry Guan Bei. From then on, the carp jumped over the dragon's gate, turning over in one fell swoop and saving decades of struggle. As Guan Bei grew up, the official family slowly, it has developed into the largest force in Huainan. If you can marry Guan Bei, you will become a local emperor in Huainan. For this reason, many people come from thousands of miles away. Among such a group of people, a scholar named Yun Munan broke into the side of the official family. He was different from those who came to the door with jewels and wanted to marry Guan Lily. He started out as an ordinary soldier, but after 2 years, with his clever and calm mind, he was quickly promoted to the point where he became the confidant of Guan Bei's father. Among a group of rude soldiers, Yun Munan seemed to stand out from the crowd. He has a tall and strong figure that is rare among southern men, but he also has the handsome and beautiful facial features of southern men. Moreover, this man is good at writing and writing, not to mention full of talents. After joining the army, he is even more outstanding. Regardless of his fighting skills or tactics, he excels in everything. Such an outstanding man quickly attracted the attention of the official family. Thinking that the official family had an unmarried daughter, the official family began to examine Yun Munan. This man was not only excellent, but also had a calm and measured personality. He was also very generous and a very good talent. After the official family examined him for 2 years, when Guan Bei was 17 years old, he was officially betrothed to him, the crown jewel of the official family. After the marriage, the old man, the official, did indeed hand over half of his troops to Yun Munan as he had promised. Let him establish his own business. Yun Munan himself is also very talented. He relied on this half of the country to develop his power in just 5 years to one of the 5 most famous warlords in the entire country, in the Huainan region. Although the influence of the official family is still there, many young people only know Yun Munan and not the official family. Although the relationship between Yun Munan and Guan Bei was not a sweet one after they got married, they still respected each other as guests. Guan Bei gave birth to a daughter soon after the marriage. After a few years of marriage, Yun Munan was not like other warlords. After taking power, he showed his true nature of arrogance. Although he was busy with military affairs, he did not have much relationship with Guan Bei. He spends a lot of time being affectionate, but he respects his wife very much. In the past few years, he has not taken in any concubines. Even if someone occasionally gave him a woman to enjoy, after he met her, no matter how beautiful the woman was, he had no intention of taking her into the house. On the contrary, she would definitely send her out the next day, giving Guan Lily enough face. In such an era, It is very unbelievable to many people that a man has not asked for his concubine when he has great power. It's okay that Yoon Munan didn't dare to take a concubine because of the official family's status, but now he has no intention of taking a concubine even after he is more powerful than the official family. It's not like he doesn't have the capital himself, not to mention his high status now. He was powerful enough, and just because of his handsome face, many women should have taken the initiative to follow him. But he had no intention of shaking Guan Bei's position. The two had only been married for a few years. Guan Lily did not leave incense for Yoon Munan, but just gave birth to a daughter. However, Yoon Munan had no intention of taking a concubine as a wife. When Guan Lily thought that this was the end of her happy life, an accident finally happened. I don't know when the temperature in Yoon Mansion began to change, and the sky seemed to be gloomy. First, the old man, who was originally a strong man, died mysteriously overnight. They began to organize a funeral for him. Guan Lily had been doted on by her grandfather since she was a child and had a deep affection for him. However, when she returned to the official family for the funeral, no one in the official family allowed her to see the last face of the old man, which aroused Guan Lily's suspicion. The weirdest thing is not just that, the official family members started to die one after another. The original official family of Nyo died almost without any heirs in just a few months. The remaining power of the official family was taken over by Yoon Munan. Everyone in the old mansion of the official family fled, and the house was completely burned down. At first, Guan Lily thought that Yoon Munan had killed her natal family in order to gain the remaining power of the official family and regain Huainan. Therefore, Guan Bei, who had never blushed and even loved her husband very much, suddenly started to quarrel with her husband. The couple began to turn against each other. She tried her best to quarrel with Yoon Munan every day. Yoon Munan started to fight from the beginning. Yoon Munan denied it and later refused to even say anything to her. The couple actually got married under the orders of their elders. They had no time to cultivate their relationship before marriage. After all this trouble, Yoon Munan suddenly became cold to Guan Lily. The loss of her mother's family and her husband's indifference hardly caused Guan Lily, a girl who had never suffered any hardship since she was a child, to collapse. But the last straw that broke the camel's back was that one morning, the servant came in a panic. When the newspaper reported that something had happened to Guan Bei's daughter Yoon Kiao, Guan Bei ran to her daughter's room in a panic, lifted the quilt and took a look, and almost collapsed at that time. She was pregnant in October and gave birth to her 3-year-old daughter. She had a peaceful smile on her face and her hair was neatly combed, lying on the bed. The strangest thing was that all the flesh and blood under her body was gone, leaving only a clean body. When seeing such a scene, Guan Lily almost fainted with fright with her eyes open. Such a strange situation made her both scared and heartbroken. A piece of meat that fell off her body was inexplicably made like this. She died in a fearful way, but she had no idea who the murderer was. When Guan Lily was in extreme pain, Yoon Munan kept silent and asked someone to come over and finish the funeral. After this blow, Guan Bei's whole body collapsed quickly. She cried all day long. She cried for her daughter and her parents. But the nightmare did not stop. Like a plague, the servants of the Yoon family also began to quickly. Death is frightening. All these dead people have only a complete head left, and the flesh and blood on their body seems to have evaporated overnight. This situation almost drove Guan Lily crazy. The servants of the Yoon family began to after escaping outside, the Yoon family was shrouded in a layer of shadow every day. An inexplicable odor began to appear in the Yoon family. The stench lingered, and water began to seep from everywhere in the Yoon family. As soon as the water touched it, the feces smelled extremely fishy, the drinking water at home began to have such a smell, the cooked rice also began to have a fishy smell, and the servants of the Yoon family seemed to have started to have such a smell. Things couldn't be contained, and people in Huainan began to panic. It was said that the Yun family might have provoked some unclean things. Even Yun Munan, who never wanted to believe in Taoism, ghosts, and gods, couldn't help but start inviting Taoist priests in. The mansion is preparing to exorcise evil spirits and catch monsters, but without exception, these Taoist priests were fine when they entered the mansion on the first day, but they will die in the same way as the people in front of them the next day. Only one head is left, but the body seems to have been eaten by something. Clean, only the skeleton remains. At this point, Guan Lili naturally thought of the inexplicable death of the Guan family. She began to be afraid and resentful. This unknown thing killed her natal family and her only daughter. She was not willing to accept it. She wanted revenge. She began to think of ways to bring out the person who was hiding in the dark, but as more and more Yun family servants died and Guan Lili still couldn't find the person hiding in the dark, she almost went crazy. Living in unknown fear every day, the death of her loved ones could drive her crazy. Guan Lili's life at that time could not be described in words. She began to become like a frightened bird. This poor person was frightened to death. The woman harbored resentment in her heart, and it would be fine if something suddenly appeared. However, that thing was hiding in the dark, exerting countless psychological pressure on her. Just when Guan Lili was about to lose her strength, the thing finally appeared. That was when Guan Lili couldn't sleep one night. More and more water seemed to appear in Yun's house inexplicably, and the usually strong stench became stronger and stronger. A woman wearing scarlet clothes, with a pale face and a pair of big eyes. Suddenly, he walked out of the darkness and appeared beside her bed and sat down. Her body was wet, and the smelly water kept dripping down her body. When it fell on Guan Lili almost vomited out, but when the water touched her, Guan Lili suddenly found that she couldn't move. Her eyes widened as she saw the girl suddenly grinning at her, revealing a mouthful of white and sharp teeth. I was originally a carp in the lake. I was rescued by Yun Munan that day and was kindly put back into the river by him. I admired his talent, and I liked his kind heart, so I turned into a human to wash and cook for him. Rice, the girl's eerie voice rang out. She reached out and touched Guan Lili. Her hands were sticky. After touching Guan Lili's face, Guan Lili felt as if a layer of softness was left on her face. The fishy smell was like a rotten palm touching her face, leaving behind purulent water and rotten flesh. It made her so sick that she almost wanted to vomit, but she couldn't. I really love him, I help him with the housework, and I slowly start to like him. I know that there shouldn't be love between men and women, but I can't control myself. It would have been better if I had listened to my mother-in-law. But I happened to be blind and met this damn man Yun Munan. As the girl spoke, her face began to show a fierce look, and she suddenly opened her mouth wide, and her little cherry mouth instantly became extremely terrifying, and the mouthful of when her sharp teeth bit Guan Lili's palm, the cold pain penetrated into the bone marrow. The pain made her whole body tremble involuntarily. She wanted to scream, but her face didn't know that the girl had touched her just now. Something happened that made her unable to scream at all, and she began to feel no change in the expression on her face. She even felt that her muscles were twitching from pain, but she still maintained a stiff smile on her face. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 488. Does it hurt? The girl grinned, wiped the red blood on her face, and began to chew. Her white teeth were covered with flesh and blood. The sound of chewing was creepy. She looked at it. Guan Lili smiled as if she was appreciating a work of art. I showed up in front of Yun Munan, confessed my love, and he accepted me. I thought we would live happily like this in this life. The girl's expression became more ferocious with every word she spoke. As she spoke, she began to bite the flesh on Guan Lili's body and began to eat it, starting from her palms and arms, then from the solace of her feet to her thighs. She started biting from the least lethal place, Guan Lili. It was like being tortured by 1,000 cuts, but there was no way to express the pain, and there was no way to complain. From the beginning, the girl talked about her love for Yun Munan. Later, she talked about Yun Munan abandoning her and joining the official army. The girl was very unwilling to be separated from her lover, so she quietly followed Yun Munan. In the official family, Yun Munan broke up with her at that time, but the girl was very unwilling to do so. She was originally just a simple fish demon, and thought that falling in love with a human would be like a legend and she should live her whole life. She pestered Yun Mu for the rest of her life. Yun Munan asked him to leave the official family with her. In the end, Yun Munan not only did not leave, but instead married the only daughter of the official family. Such a thing naturally made the girl heartbroken. She used the most ferocious curse of her fish demon clan to cast it on Yun Munan, a heartless man. Once this curse took effect, Yun Munan would be killed in 77 or 40. Within 9 days, he died of excruciating pain all over his body. The ulcers started from the inside out, and the pain that was like gnawing at the heart of thousands of ants was enough for this heartless man to get the punishment he deserved. Originally, the girl thought that her revenge was complete, so she left with satisfaction. She couldn't get Yun Munan, and she couldn't let Yun Munan abandon her after playing with her. She originally thought that if Yun Munan wanted to survive, he had to break off the engagement with Guan Lili. When he returned to her, this curse, there are only 2 ways to resolve it. One is for Yun Munan to return to her and beg her for forgiveness so that he will never be a playboy again. You can't betray her for the rest of your life, and the other way is to use her flesh and blood to eat her and then lift the curse. Yun Munan doesn't know the second way, so the girl thinks that her sweetheart will definitely return after suffering the pain. Come to her. Yun Munan did arrive at the pond where the two first met after holding on for more than half a month, and the girl thought he had changed his mind. Unexpectedly, he got some kind of Taoist talisman paper from somewhere and stuck it on her body. The girl couldn't control herself and transformed into her original shape. Yun Munan took her home, and the girl started to feel a little, she became frightened and begged loudly to Yun Munan. But Yun Munan didn't pay attention to her. Instead, he got the method to lift the spell from somewhere. He scraped her scales off, washed her and put her into the pot. Having said this, the girl sneered, looking at Guan Lili, whose limbs had been almost eaten by her, leaving only the pale bones. She smiled slightly. In order to undo the curse I gave him, he ate me, eating every drop. Not even the internal organs. After she finished speaking, she bit Guan Lili's belly. He used sharp teeth to disembowel her. I swore that I would let him taste that pain. Curse to eat me. When you fight, do you feel hopeless? I was so desperate before. The girl said angrily, while eating Guan Lili clean. In agony, Guan Lili learned the truth of the matter, and she began to feel resentful. Her family, her daughter, and her close relatives were killed for such reasons. She herself was in extreme pain. She died in despair. Thinking of these years of torture, Guan Lili hated her to the core. She had no enmity with this carp girl. Even if Yun Munan abandoned her, what did it have to do with her? She didn't know anything about Yun Munan's past. She married Yun Munan at the discretion of her parents and elders. It was okay for the girl to kill all her relatives. Why did she still torture her in this way? She was not the one who ate the girl. Why did she die in such a horrifying way? She was unwilling to do so. She wanted to avenge her family, she wanted to avenge her daughter, and she wanted to kill this dead fish monster. The ghost will not die a good death, and his soul will be scattered. After watching the girl finish eating the last piece of her meat and carefully licking away the blood on her skeleton, Guan Lili felt the girl wipe her face clean and leave. The pain before death seemed to still haunt her, and she made a deal with Li Yangzi without hesitation. When Lili finished receiving this plot, She couldn't help but trembled in excitement. From the beginning to now, Lily has carried out many missions. In the plot, every original owner who needs her help has had countless kinds of situations. The way of death included pain and regret, sadness and loss, and the experience was that of being deceived by a man and leaving him desperate. But only in this case, the original owner was eaten alive by the wronged soul. Even Lily had seen such a way of death, and even dealt with them during missions. But now when she thought of Guan Lily's pain before her death, she still felt chills, as if that kind of pain, as if the pain is still lingering on Guan Lily. The ghost of the carp demon is very vicious. Her experience is certainly worthy of sympathy, but after all, just as Guan Lily thought, the person who harmed the carp demon is not Guan Lily. Even if she wants to, when looking for someone to take revenge, you should have someone to blame. You should not vent your anger on others, especially not on the official family and Guan Lily's 3-year-old daughter. After all, the child is innocent, even if Guan Lily did it without her knowledge. The situation ruined the relationship between Carp Jing and Yun Munan. If she wanted to kill Officer Lily, she shouldn't use such a painful method. When she opened her eyes, Lily let out a long breath. She had been soaking in the bathtub for more than an hour on a cold day. By now, the scalding water had already cooled down. Fortunately, her mental strength had improved. She is also quick to receive plots. Otherwise, if it took 2 or 3 hours to receive a plot like before, she would probably get frozen. At this moment, Lily shivered and quickly stood up from the water. Outside the screen, a girl with a runny nose had been standing outside the screen. She stamped her cold feet and asked in a low voice, "Madam, wash it well yet?" Lily responded, and the little girl handed over a thick coat. Lily endured the cold and wrapped it up. After leaving the screen, after struggling for a long time, it started to get brighter outside. The morning air was very fresh, mixed with, there was a fresh smell of mist and earth, but she didn't know if it was due to Lily's psychological reasons. She always felt as if she smelled a faint fishy smell. Calculating the time, Guan Lily's grandfather had just passed away at this time, and her biological father and eldest brother also passed away inexplicably half a month ago. The official family was so secretive that they did not dare to make a big deal about it. In such a situation, it inevitably aroused a lot of discussion among the people in Huainan. When Guan Bei could not see her grandfather for the last time, nor her father and eldest brother for the last time, she also doubted whether there were other reasons for the death of her relatives. After all, her mother had a look of horror on her face when she mentioned this, as if she had seen a ghost. Guan Lily naturally understood what was going on later, but at that time in the plot, she didn't think so much about it. She just heard the discussions outside and speculated whether the death of her relatives was the reason why Yun Munan crossed the river and burned the bridge, so she started a fight with Yun Munan. Yun Munan naturally denied the matter at first, but the official Lily at the time had already suspected her husband, and naturally refused to believe Yun Munan's words. Therefore, the couple broke up on bad terms, and the shadow of the Yun family came over in the last few days. The husband's indifference, the death of relatives, and the horrific and bizarre death of her daughter, the permeating shadow of the Yun family was like a dense web of fear, tightly entangled in Guan Lily's heart. "Where's the master?" Lily wiped her hair, feeling a little flustered and depressed at the moment. Now the Guan family has begun to kill people, which proves that the carp spirit has begun to take revenge on the Guan family. Once the Guan family is dead, she would reach out to the Yun family, and the first person to seek revenge from the Yun family was Guan Bei and Yun Munan's daughter. The Guan family originally had many heirs, but they all died out in just half a year. It was just the beginning, but fear had already begun to take root and sprout in the hearts of the officials like a seed. Lily could almost imagine how scared the officials were at this moment. Unfortunately, when I first arrived, I learned about Taoist scriptures such as the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect, which can exorcise evil spirits and cure ghosts, but I couldn't use it at all. Thinking that she could only watch the official family fall into such a situation but was helpless for a while, Lily couldn't help but feel a little heavy. A sudden resentment surged into her heart, making her want to immediately kill the carp in the plot. The ghost of the demon was dragged out and beaten to pieces. In the past few days, Lily had had a quarrel with Yoon Munan for the first time because of official matters. The two couples had a fierce quarrel this time. Yoon Munan hadn't even come back to the room for 7 or 8 days. Lily spoke up now. Asked, the pale little girl trembled and knelt down without saying a word, unable to speak. Because Kwanbei has been unhappy with her husband in the past few days, she doesn't treat her servants well. This little girl who is close to her has not dared to breathe when facing her recently, for fear of making her unhappy, so she replied at this time no problem. Lily sighed and saw that it was still early. She waved her hand and said somewhat annoyed, "Let's go out." The little girl looked relieved. Before she could actually leave the room, Lily then he thought again, by the way, buy me some talisman paper and cinnabar. Recently, my parents' family seems to be inviting Taoist priests. Buy more. I will send them home when I have time. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. P.S. First update. Recommended gay novels. Palm beads. Everyone in the capital knew that Ruoshan, the eldest girl in the second room of the Lian family, was severely blind. She will recognize you if you wear a ponytail today, but if you wear another one tomorrow, she won't remember you. But there was one person who was wrapped in a bear, and she could always tell the difference at a glance. Because they first met at the most embarrassing time, but they met again in the best years. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 489. There was no need for her to explain to the little girl what she was going to do, but instead of letting the palace become suspicious and then spread rumors, she should just explain in a garrulous manner. The little girl's face actually showed a look of realization. Seeing that Lily had no other instructions, he quickly retreated. As soon as she left, Lily took advantage of no one around to stretch her muscles and prepare to practice the Tao Te Ching with the star training technique. This time the mission was very urgent. She entered the mission before she was married to Yoon Munan, so she had no extra preparations at all. In at most half a year, she would have to face the vicious beast that had become the weatherfish demon, and in the past 6 months, she has tried her best to save the people of the official family. Thinking that after the fish demon died in the plot, she had magical power, and died at the hands of the man she loved. The resentment and the backlash of the curse she placed on Yoon Munan made her whole body full of hostility and curse power, and her lethality increased exponentially, so she could turn into a physical entity after death to eat and harm others. Time is so tight, even if you can't save the official family, you should at least protect the daughter of the original owner. If you don't care about the official family, you only have half a year at most. Lily doesn't know how far she can practice, but at this moment she didn't dare to waste any extra time. After moving her muscles a little, she began to practice the star training technique, attracting the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into her body and slowly running the Tao Te Ching. This time she also had a body with excellent bones. When the spiritual energy entered the body, it took almost no effort. Lily guided the spiritual energy to circulate in the body with double focus. She was not a fool. Lily had doubted her body after entering the mission several times in succession, whether it was practicing martial arts or practicing moral arts. They were all very smooth, as if they were born to be good at practicing martial arts and Taoism. If this happened once or twice, it would be fine. It happened every time. It was hard not to make her suspicious. She thought about it carefully and it seemed that there were such benefits. It was after she got the mark in the attribute value, and the reason why she got the mark was because she was close to Li Yangzi. Li Yangzi once explained the mark. It is said that after possessing this mark, it is equivalent to sharing some of his abilities. Lily's face started to get hot involuntarily when she thought of this. The sky outside gradually became brighter, and after the thick fog surrounding the house slowly dissipated, the cold feeling also began to dissipate. Lily also felt that her whole body was getting warm at this time. The coldness that came from her bones when she entered the mission had long since disappeared without a trace. This time, the effect of practicing the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect in conjunction with the star training technique very good. Although this is the first time for this body to practice, the spiritual energy introduced into the body has begun to slowly swim in the muscles and veins. If it was before, the first practice is just to let the muscles and veins get accustomed to the existence of spiritual energy. There will definitely be no spiritual energy left the first time. It is not until many times of practice that the spiritual energy will gradually remain in the body, just like the principle of once reborn and second time familiar. Lily stretched and was about to practice again when the little girl standing outside began to timidly knock on the door. "Madam, the big girl is here." When this body heard the words big girl, tears burst out involuntarily, and she reached out to cover her lips. Holding back the sobs that almost escaped, she hurriedly shouted, "Let the big girl come in quickly." In the plot, Yun Qiao, Guanbei's only daughter, died tragically. This almost made Guan Lily collapse and go crazy. When she heard her daughter coming, Lily could hardly control her body. At this moment, Lily was obviously on guard, but her body was still in a hurry to open the door. The nanny held her a little girl with a bun, a fair and cute face, and eyebrows vaguely similar to Yun Munan's came into the room. Guanbei was in a bad mood recently because of a quarrel with her husband. Even Yun Qiao looked a little timid when she looked at Bei. Children are most sensitive to adults' emotions, so they were taught to be well behaved during this period in the plot. Yun Qiao was so obedient that it made people feel distressed. When she saw Lily, she stretched out her arms and made a hug gesture, and softly called out, "Mother." Lily's heart was beating very hard at this time. She took several deep breaths before reaching out to take Yun Qiao over and asking her what she did yesterday, whether she was obedient and whether she had eaten. 3-year-old girls are well behaved. She agreed, as if she felt that Lily's mood had calmed down a bit in the past 2 days. A rare smile appeared on the little girl's face, and she shyly pointed out to Lily the hair that her mother had tied up for her this morning. "The nanny tied it for me this morning, and she also used a red hair rope." This little girl has a proud yet shy look with a pair of big watery eyes and a handsome face. She is indeed very lovable. When everyone was laughing together, suddenly there was a shrill meow of a cat outside the yard. Meow followed by a sound of analyzing the sound, like the sound of grass being trampled, which made people's hair stand on end in this originally quiet morning. It was already very quiet outside the yard, and the house became lively because of the children coming over. As soon as Leng Hushu heard the cat's meow, everyone in the house was startled except Lily, who was sitting there. Yun Qiao, who was still blushing, suddenly turned pale with fright. She put her hands around Lily's waist, and her petite body began to tremble uncontrollably. However, her good tutoring prevented her from crying at this time, but instead forced her to cry. She pretended to be calm, but the more she acted like this, the more people felt distressed. "This dead cat is suffering from the plague." The wet nurse, who was also frightened, started to tremble. Her face was so white that she was almost blue. Before Lily could speak, she subconsciously started to curse, but the wet nurse was very scared. She quickly reflected that she had just lost her composure in front of the hostess. She thought about Guan Lily's somewhat hysterical personality recently, and also thought about the recent events in Guan's family that made her in a bad mood. After she came back, she got into trouble with Yun Munan. The servant of the family was even walking carefully for fear of offending her. At this moment, he blurted out a curse in front of her. The wet nurse was so frightened that she fell to her knees on the ground, shaking like chaff. "Mrs. spare your life." In the Huainan area, Yun Munan is the dominating local emperor, and everyone's lives are in the palm of his hand. Although Guan Lily has been well protected by her family since she was a child, and her temperament is considered gentle and kind, she was born in a warlord's family and married her husband was a warlord, so sometimes there was no need to reason with others. The nanny was so afraid that she would make Lily unhappy by speaking out, so she sent someone to drag her down and kill her. Tears welled up in her eyes. Lily shivered subconsciously when she first heard the cat's meow. She was not afraid. After so many missions, was there anything she hadn't seen before? But she vaguely remembered that in the plot, Guan Lily seemed to have heard a cat meowing before she died. Lily had an idea at this moment and didn't care about arguing with the nanny. Instead, she frowned and asked, "There seem to be a lot of wild cats in the house recently, get up." After hearing this, the clever man hurriedly retreated from the house. After a while, a woman bowed her head and smiled, and entered the house holding a struggling black cat in her hand. "Come, madam, this beast is disturbing my peace." The black cat looked very fat. It didn't panic when it was caught. It just let out a warning whine and stared at Guan Lily and Yun Qiao with its big round eyes. Yun Qiao's lips were so frightened by this look. Shivering, Lily subconsciously stretched out her hand to pat Yun Qiao's back, and lowered her voice to coax her, "Be good, mother, Qiao is not afraid." While she was talking, there was a sound of footsteps outside. People in the room subconsciously turned their heads to look. The woman who was catching the cat let out a scream. The black cat that was originally twisted in her hand seemed to be, as if she had caught an opportunity, she jumped with all her strength, her claws scratched the back of her hand and she jumped to the ground with blood. Just as she was about to run away, a scream came from her mouth, and the black cat was stepped on the ground by a foot wearing a black military boot. Struggled desperately but could not escape, and screamed ouch from his mouth. A big hand with clear joints easily grabbed the soft flesh behind the cat's neck and twisted it up. "Scared you?" A cold male voice rang out, and everyone seemed to have come back to their senses. They hurriedly knelt down to say hello, "May you be safe, sir." Lily then turned her attention to the husband of the original owner. Everyone said that Yun Munan was a famous handsome man in Huainan. In the plot, the impression Yun Munan left on Guan Lily was all good, but at this moment Lily still saw it in person, seeing the handsome man in the plot who even the carp demon couldn't help but fall in love with at first sight. Yun Munan has an elegant temperament. As a warlord with a large number of soldiers, he doesn't look like there is any trace of blood or recklessness in him. Despite his rude aura, he looked like an elegant and dignified scholar who had stepped out of a painting. He was wearing a white starched shirt, a neatly buttoned military uniform, and a military green hooded coat. Dressed in military attire, he exuded a bit of military heroism in addition to his elegance. This contradictory temperament actually added a bit of charming charm to him. He was twisting the cat with one hand at the moment. The little thing that was still struggling in the mother-in-law's hands just now seemed to be held by someone's lifeblood. It quietly let out a weak cry, as if it didn't dare to move. Small appearance. Does this cat belong to the master? Lily stood up with her daughter in her arms. Yun Qiao, who had been sitting on her just now and was very obedient, struggled twice and fell to the ground. She bowed respectfully to Yun Munan. I called out in a crisp voice, "Dad." To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 490. There have been more rats in the house recently. I have purchased a new batch of military rations and need cats. As the largest warlord in the Huainan region, it is not uncommon to hoard food and grass, but what is rare is that Yun Munan is like this. Lily was so talkative that she explained. Somehow, Lily suddenly remembered the way she had ordered the little girl next to her to buy cinnabar money in the morning. It was so similar to Yoon Munan at that time. It was like superfluous, and she couldn't help but grin slightly. Laughed. It seems that Yoon Munan is not raising cats for the so-called plague prevention. After all, he has the most power in the Hwainan area, and it will not be a matter of a day or two for him to have enough troops. Hwainan is located in an important place. As long as the old government has not collapsed, Hwainan will it is a famous food and grass hoarding place in China. There has been no plague before. But now Yoon Munan is worried. According to his character in the plot, he is not someone who would do such boring things. It can be seen that his raising a cat is a drunkard's intention and his intention is not to drink. Lily glanced at Yoon Munan and had an idea in her mind. A faint thought ran through her mind, but her face remained calm. Looking at the black cat held by Yoon Munan, Lily he walked a few steps and picked up the cat. "Thank you for your hard work, sir." The group of people didn't need Lily's instructions. A little girl stepped forward to take off Yoon Munan's coat with a blushing heart, but he refused with a frown. After taking it off, he threw it into the girl's hands, revealing the olive green military uniform underneath. After taking the handkerchief and wiping his face, he glanced at his daughter and said, "Take the young lady down first." He looked like he had something to say to Lily. In this family, Yoon Munan had always been the one who said the right thing. As soon as he finished speaking, the wet nurse quickly picked up Yoon Jiao and saluted Lily without even daring to raise her head. The people who were standing in the room just now were all gone in an instant. "Don't you like cats?" Yoon Munan dragged a chair and sat down. He stretched out his hand to make himself a cup of hot tea and took a sip. Then he exhaled a hot breath and raised his eyebrows and asked Lily with a half-smile. Although he is in a high position now, many of his habits are still the same as before when he was not successful. He does not like others to interfere in his own affairs. Such people usually have a strong desire for control. Lily raised her eyelids and remained silent. Thinking about the plot, Gwanbae he really doesn't like cats. The series of mysterious deaths of her mother's family and the unhappy breakup with her husband made her depressed during this period of the plot, especially when there were so many new people in the family suddenly. Cats, howling all day long, make people feel frightened and frightened. So she once asked the servants at home to catch these cats and throw them out. At this moment, Lily took the black cat over in a strange way. Lily didn't expect that when she noticed Yoon Munan's handle, he also I noticed such a small detail and couldn't help but become wary. I was in a bad mood the past 2 days, and hearing this cry was very disturbing. But since the master said that this thing was raised to catch mice, it is useful. Naturally, I am pleased with it. Several thoughts passed through Lily's mind. Couldn't help but smile at Yoon Munan. Gwan Lily's relationship with Yoon Munan was so tense some time before her death that she didn't even see her husband for the last time when she died. These were all the fault of the carp demon. She felt a little regretful about the ghost's conspiracy. After all, they had been married for several years. No matter how bad Yoon Munan is in carp demon's heart, he actually still has status in Gwan Lily's heart. Being able to build a good relationship with Yoon Munan, and no longer leaving Gwanbae with regrets after his death like in the plot, should be regarded as fulfilling Gwanbae's wish. Yoon Munan remained silent and didn't make a sound. He just turned his head and stared out the window. From the side of his face, you could see the clear lines of his facial features. The slightly raised Adam's apple on his neck slid as he swallowed the tea. His resolute chin was shaved. Very clean. If you just look at his face, he has a modest and gentlemanly elegant temperament, and you can't tell that he is a soldier who abandoned his pen and joined the army. Gwan family, don't go back in the future. Yoon Munan stared outside for a long time, with a hint of decisive killing intent in his brown eyes. He clenched the teacup tightly with his palm until the veins on the back of his hand were all visible. He jumped up, drank all the tea in his cup, and then said this in a cold voice, then stood up and stared at Lily condescendingly. "I will not harm the official family." After he said this, he reached out to take the coat hanging on the hanger, as if he was obviously about to leave. Lily felt a little sad for no reason in her heart. Her body moved faster than her thoughts. She reached out and took the coat into her arms. As soon as the black cat in her arms was released, she stood on tiptoes to take off the clothes and put them on Yoon Munan's shoulders. She couldn't help but put her arms around Yoon Munan's waist. Lily buried her face in Yoon Munan's chest. In front of her, Yoon Munan subconsciously seemed to reach out and grab her arm, and his whole body suddenly became tense. His body's instinctive vigilance seemed to be about to throw her away at the next moment, but then he seemed to have changed very quickly. With a general idea, he tentatively reached out and hugged Lily, but at this moment Lily's brows suddenly wrinkled. The original owner was probably the reason for the tragic death, so her resentment was very heavy. At this time, she could not control her actions. Yoon Munan hugged her tentatively at first, and then suddenly became a little harder. Before Lily could react, her soul floated out of her body. Yoon Munan hugged Guan Lily. He seemed to be aware of it and looked around. Finally, his frown fell on Guan Lily's gentle face. When he put Guan Lily on the bed, he looked at a few eye-catching black cat hairs on his clothes, ordered someone to bring hot water in, and after taking a bath, he dressed neatly again. Glanced at Guan Lily, who was sitting on the bed with a graceful expression, moved her cheek muscles, and went out again without looking back. Lily waited for him to leave before returning to her body. Yoon Munan's breath was no longer in the room. Lily quickly put him behind her and thought about Yoon Munan's recent behavior of raising cats and the rare time he spoke. "Tell yourself not to go back to the official family again. He has never been a person who is unprepared for things. If something goes wrong, it must be a demon. Could it be that he already knows what happened in the official family, or does he actually understand that the carp demon in the official family has entangled them?" After the fish demon turned into a ghost, a Taoist priest could restrain it, but the resentment of this fish demon was too strong, and ordinary Taoist priests were no match for her. In the plot, Guan Lily invited many Taoist priests to come in, but they all died completely. It can be seen that Yoon Munan has no intention of inviting a Taoist priest. There has been no news of a Taoist priest entering the house recently. On the contrary, there have been many more cats overnight. Lily suddenly sat on the bed and reached out to pet her. Hare smiled softly. "Cats eat fish, dogs eat meat." These two humorous nursery rhymes that everyone knew, suddenly appeared in Lily's mind. At this moment, she was 100% sure that Yoon Munan must have known about the carp demon's ghost coming back for revenge, and he has already begun to make preparations. Black cats are considered ominous to many people, but in fact, in ancient folklore, black cats have the function of channeling spirits and avoiding evil, because evil and evil things usually occur wherever black cats appear. That's why people think that the black cat is also unknown, but Lily herself is a Taoist and knows that this statement is wrong. The black cat can not only ward off evil spirits, but also has a certain effect of exorcising evil spirits. It can howl all day long. It must be because the home is not clean. And Yoon Munan bought a large number of black cats, and the cats happened to like fish the most. This made Lily want to convince herself that what he did was not to deal with the carp demon. Thinking of this, Lily breathed a sigh of relief and felt a little chilled at the same time. Sure enough, a person cannot be judged by his appearance. Yoon Munan looks like a gentle gentleman with an elegant temperament. However, this person is worthy of his military background. Advance and retreat in a measured and decisive manner. In order to remove the poison of the curse from his body and to prevent himself from being controlled by the carp demon in the future, he was so ruthless that he ate the carp demon into his belly. Now he knows that the carp demon has come to seek revenge. He was not afraid or dodged, but faced difficulties head-on. It was a pity that Guan Lily died too early in the plot. I wonder if such a character also died in the hands of the carp demon in the end. If he could defeat the carp demon, depending on how meticulous and ruthless this person is, he will definitely not be a thing in the pond one day. After knowing that Yun Munan was prepared, Lily was naturally relieved. Multiple people meant multiple paths. She only wanted Yun Munan to be able to delay the carp demon for a while and give her a few months of free time. Even if it was her lack of magic power, but if she could make up for it by drawing more talisman papers, and finally adding the help of the black cat, she might be able to take down the ferocious carp demon. After feeling relieved, Lily began to focus on practicing the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth section. The talisman papers she wanted to buy was also delivered to the mansion that afternoon. Yun Munan seemed to be very busy, appearing that day. It didn't appear again after that. However, the cats in the mansion meowed more and more since Yun Munan came over that day, and the atmosphere in the mansion became gloomier day by day. Sometimes it should be the time when the sun comes out, but it happens to be so early in the morning. The thick fog still did not dissipate. It seemed as if overnight there were more snakes, insects, rats, and ants in Yun's house that should not have appeared at this time. In the morning, Lily had just practiced the Tao Te Ching all night. When she was in good spirits, the little girl he came in with a pale face. "Madam," the housekeeper asked if we would like to invite some worm-catching masters. Last night, Grandma Zhang, who was guarding the courtyard, was almost bitten by a cobra. This time should be when snakes are hibernating, and there shouldn't be so many venomous insects, snakes, and rats. The nun who was guarding the room last night was not paying attention and almost stepped on it. She was scared to death when she came to her senses. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 491. Recently, there have been more and more bugs in the house, and there is even a hint of water seeping out of the ground. When the Yun mansion was first built, a Feng Shui master was invited to come and see it. It is the best Feng Shui treasure land in Huainan, and is most suitable for building a house. However, it can not only keep power and wealth, but also prosper for future generations, because this place in Yun Mansion is not a damp and dark place. Even in summer, there is no water seeping from the ground, but in the past 2 days, the roof beams have begun to seep. The water came out, and the water had a fishy smell as soon as it touched it, as if a dead mouse was hiding somewhere, but people searched for a long time and couldn't find the source at all. When Lily heard this and saw the panicked look on the girl's face, she couldn't help but touch her hands. Lily was not afraid of these bugs. After all, she had fought with these bugs several times during her own missions in order to cultivate goo bugs. After dealing with each other, just hearing about snakes was just gone. Lily's body's subconscious fear reaction. When she thought of goo insects, Lily's eyes suddenly lit up. No need to ask the master, I have a way. There are so many inexplicable bugs at home this season, it must be due to the influence of yin energy. Needless to say, the ghost of the carp demon must have been in the Yun family. This monster is very powerful, because it carries the power of the curse and the resentment of being eaten by her sweetheart, so once she appears in a place, yin energy will definitely breed, and many insects will appear. Lily thought that she had set up a yin gathering array during her previous mission to revitalize mission. Goo worm, it took 2 years to raise a purple gold ghost king goo, and even the 9 nether ghost king that had formed a solid body was swallowed up. Although the situation this time was a bit special. But if you can collect some goo worms, even if you don't have enough time to grow the purple gold ghost king goo, if you cultivate more goo worms, it will be good to ward off the fish demon for a while. Anyway, these bugs would be a scourge if left alone. Thinking of this, Lily's heart ached, and she quickly asked the girl to prepare a pen and paper, and wrote down a bunch of medicinal materials for the little girl to give to the housekeeper to buy. These replenishing medicinal materials were mixed with things that could be used to attract poisonous insects. The housekeeper sent them over in the afternoon. Each medicinal material was cut carefully, which saved Lily a lot of effort. It took half a day. At night, Lily prepared the medicinal ingredients and told the little girl not to come over to keep vigil at night. Seeing that it was getting dark outside, Lily took a few materials and started walking in Yun Mansion. At this moment, because of the inexplicable stench in Yun's house and the leaking of underground water, the whole Yun family has been feeling a little panic recently, especially because there are inexplicably more bugs in the house. These are all signs of an unknown omen. Servants, although Yun Munan did not dare to spread any bad rumors on the surface due to his status as a great warlord in Huainan, he was still afraid in his heart. Therefore, the entire Yun family was extremely quiet after nightfall, with no one keeping vigil around at all. The red lanterns hanging under the corridor of Nyo University were blown by the wind and swayed uncontrollably, giving off an eerie feeling. Lily chose to walk under the shade of a tree, hiding her body in the darkness. She began to look for the darkest place in the Yun family. Although the Yun family had chosen a good location when they first built their house, it was originally a harmony of yin and yang. Feng Shui, but now that ghosts have gotten in, then this balance must be broken, and there is a place where yang qi is strong. Then there must be a place with relatively sufficient yin energy. The Yun family is not a small place. Lily walked for nearly an hour before finally finding a well that had been abandoned for a long time in the northwest of the house. The well that was already dry was now more than half full. The water looked very strange under the dim moonlight. After the backyard here was built, it was originally used by the servants. However, the Yun family covers a large area and there are not many masters. The place where the servants live is considered spacious. There were not many people living here. The other good houses are still there. There was room, and the place slowly became empty. The grass inside has now grown about half a person's height, and some water has begun to accumulate in the ground like a rice field. When you step on the grass, the yin-filled water in the ground soaks the embroidered shoes on Lily's feet, making it cold to the bone. Cold air surged up from the soles of her feet, making her shiver from the cold. After the Tao Te Ching in Lily's body started to circulate, the cold feeling slowly receded. Hidden in the grass were many poisonous scorpions with translucent bodies and some insects. The bodies of these insects were grayish-white, and each of them was very strong. They didn't look any smaller than the bugs attracted by Lily's yin gathering array. When Lily pulled out the grass, some bugs hiding in the grass were not only not afraid of strangers when they saw them, but started crawling around like crazy with their teeth and claws. The movement was very fast, as if trying to jump from the grass into Lily's body. The originally empty eaves are now covered with dense insects, the eaves are dripping with water, and some beams have begun to stand up. It looks like an old house that has experienced hundreds of years of wind and rain. There is no trace of the atmosphere of a new house that was built only 3 or 4 years ago. Lily first looked at the surrounding environment and determined the place with the most yin energy. Then she put down the 2 clay pots she had brought with her. Medicinal materials had been added to them. She opened the lids of the clay pots, and the surroundings many insects seemed to smell the smell and scrambled to crawl inside. This place is desolate. Although the servants of the Yun family no longer dare to come here after there are insects in the house, in order to prevent someone from coming in and ruining her good deeds, Lily still used the stones she picked up to make a temporary cover to hide her from others. After using a blind trick to prevent people from discovering his 2 clay pots, he heard the sound of insects biting each other from the pots, and then he began to practice physical training on the side. After completing a set of physical training techniques, the 2 jars were already filled with bugs. Some bugs couldn't get in and were crawling on the edge of the jar. Lily closed the lid and left the place. When he returned to his courtyard, a black cat sprang out from nowhere. Its petite body spun around at Lily's feet, and was almost stepped on by Lily. It let out a shrill scream. "Come on," the crisp sound of meow was very permeable in this late night. At this moment, the black cat was startled and ran away, staring at Lily with a pair of big golden eyes, and issued a warning in his mouth. Like whimpering. After driving the black cat away, when Lily returned to the room, the mother-in-law who was watching the night did not dare to come out when she heard the cat meowing just now. The Yun family has a large population, but it has been very deserted recently. Lily gently pushed away. She slipped into the room through the door that had been unlocked when she went out, and then breathed a sigh of relief. She only went out for a walk, and now her body was already stained with some moist dew, and there was a faint trace of it. It smelled a bit fishy, as if it had just been soaked in a pond where a lot of fish and shrimp had died for a long time. Just as Lily was about to take off her coat, a plain male voice rang out. "Where have you been?" "When I went out, I wasn't scared by the poisonous insects crawling all over the ground, and when I came back, I wasn't scared by the weird black cat, but now I could hear someone talking." As the saying goes, people are scared to death, and Lily's heart skipped a beat. The sound almost jumped to her throat. She took a deep breath and almost screamed. Yun Munan, whom he hadn't seen for several days, was currently wearing a white shirt with the hem tucked into ginger military trousers. His wrists and sleeves were rolled up, revealing his strong wrists, giving him a gentle and elegant temperament. There was a bit of toughness in him. The thick old bearskin round-toe ankle boots had not yet been replaced. The trousers were tied into the boots. The upper body was covered with a black satin jacket, which was now buckled and unbuttoned. It was not buttoned up. He was sitting crookedly on the chaise longue where Lily usually likes to sit. He was reading a book. The screen outside blocked his figure, and the lights in the room were not very bright. He didn't even make a sound just now. He didn't say anything, and Lily didn't notice him when he came back. When she saw Yun Munan, Lily's heart beat a little hard, and she couldn't help but hold back her anger and said, "When did the master come?" She grinned and saw that Yun Munan did not raise his head to look at her at this time. He just held a book in one hand and a small sign in the other hand and picked it up under the lamp. It didn't take much time. The room is a little brighter, and beauties look more beautiful under the lamp. This applies to Yun Munan as well. When he looks at it from the front, he always feels that his facial features are not very outstanding, but when combined together they are very tasteful. Now he lowered his eyelids and did not move his eyes from the book when he spoke. His expression was indifferent. When Lily turned to look at him, he reached out and turned the page in the book, obviously reading very seriously. It's been a while. When Yun Munan spoke, he looked away from the book as if he was reluctant to leave. He even carefully took the bookmark and put it on the page he had read. The slender palms were very strong and had well-defined joints. They were not pampered hands, but at this moment they seemed to cherish the book very much. He put the book on the small table and stood up. The black satin jacket that was originally draped over his shoulders now slipped onto the imperial concubine's couch. His tall figure walked towards Lily. His figure cast a very long shadow under the light, and there were shadows on his eyebrows and the bridge of his nose, which was warm and gentle. Ryu's face shows nothing of the ruthlessness mentioned by the carp demon ghost in the plot. Instead, she looks like a humble gentleman, making it easy for people to fall in love with her. "Where have you gone?" Yun Munan asked again, his eyes falling on Lily's feet that were still stained with muddy water and grass clippings. His eyelids were drooped, blocking the thoughts in his eyes, making it difficult to see clearly the brilliance inside. Lily's mind began to spin rapidly at this moment. Yun Munan had not set foot in the original owner's house for nearly half a month since he had a quarrel with the original owner. He had been busy since he became a warlord, and the couple was tired of it. "We don't spend much time together, and it's not unusual to not see each other for 3 or 5 days. I didn't expect that Yun Munan would come over tonight." To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation.